The hero of our story lived a miserable life. He gained a powerful ability, but the system neither explained its benefits nor how to activate it. Even after 7 years of hard work, he was dismissed by his employer after becoming injured and disabled. Everyone mocked him, including the scoundrel whom our hero was injured while saving. But everything changed the moment he decided to end his life. What exactly happened, and how will this change everything? This is what we'll uncover in today's story. 30 years ago, a massive gate suddenly appeared in the sky, unleashing countless monsters and plunging the world into chaos and destruction. Despite the turmoil, order remained somewhat maintained thanks to the hunters' guilds. In the present day, our protagonist, Taejun, is deeply frustrated with everything, from the gates and leadership to the hunters and their guilds, and even those around him. In a moment of despair, he attempts to end his life by jumping off a bridge, shouting bitterly at the cruel world, lamenting how he had done nothing to deserve such harsh treatment. Security personnel in the area noticed Taejun standing on the edge of the bridge and warn him that it's dangerous, urging him to step back and calm down. But Taejun reacts angrily, shouting back, questioning who they are to tell him what to do, and declaring that he can't even end his suffering peacefully. The security team tries to soothe him, asking him to come down and talk, but Taejun, overwhelmed with anguish, demands that they stay away, asking how he could possibly calm down in such a situation. He emphasizes that they have no idea what he's been through and insists that they would never understand the struggles he faced, especially since, only 3 hours ago, his life was turned upside down by news of his dismissal from the Pishon Hunters Guild without any prior notice. Taejun confronts the guild leader Kyung, questioning why he was dismissed so abruptly and without reason, and wonders why his sacrifices for the guild weren't appreciated. Kyung responds with disdain, asking what accomplishments Taejun thinks he's achieved, pointing out that at best, he's only been a porter. He explains that Taejun was hired because he seemed hard-working and might prove himself, but after 7 years, he's only managed to reach the rank of a D-class hunter. Moreover, his recent injury left him limping, so what value could he bring to the guild in his current state? Kyung coldly asks if Taejun believes the guild is a recreational center. Taejun tries to justify himself, but Kyung cuts him off, informing him that he'll receive a severance package and advising him to take it and resign. Yet Taejun doesn't want this outcome. He insists he'll find a way to heal his injury and still has much to contribute. At this moment, Hunter Young Jin seizes the opportunity to humiliate Taejun while ingratiating himself with Kyung. With arrogance, he questions why Taejun can't grasp the straightforward message, reminding him that the leader ordered him to leave. Taejun yells at him, protesting the way he's being addressed, to which Young Jin mockingly replies, calling him pathetic and suggesting that he should take his severance pay and buy himself some snacks fitting for a D-class hunter like him. Taejun's rage ignites as he grabs Young Jin's clothes, reminding him that he sustained this injury while trying to save Young Jin's life, sarcastically asking who would have survived without his intervention in the dungeon, emphasizing that if it weren't for him, Young Jin wouldn't be standing there today. Young Jin scoffs, laughing mockingly, asking when he ever asked Taejun to save him, and reminds him that, as a mere porter, Taejun should act within his limited capacity and stop getting arrogant, stressing that he should know his place well. Young Jin continues to insult Taejun, expressing disbelief that a failure like him could possess an S-class ability, deriding Taejun's skill known as explosive growth. He sneers, joking that the skill should have increased Taejun's height, but it seems his growth hormones aren't working, laughing at him with contempt. Taejun's anger flares as he lunges at Young Jin with all his might, but his attacks prove ineffective due to Young Jin's shield ability. Young Jin taunts Taejun, assuring him he'll put him in his place now. He lands a powerful blow that leaves Taejun off balance and in severe pain. Grabbing Taejun, Young Jin coldly tells him that just because he joined the guild years earlier doesn't grant him any authority. He adds that his patience has run out and proceeds to deliver a series of swift, brutal strikes, claiming he merely wants to test his strength. He sneers, saying Taejun's punishment is for remaining a D-rank hunter and for the audacity to challenge a C-rank hunter and argue with the guild leader. Despite the pain and relentless beating, the guild leader and other hunters look on indifferently, unmoved by Taejun's suffering. Collapsing onto the ground, Taejun is left immobile from the pain. The guild leader tosses his severance pay to him with a mocking thank you for his 7 years of service, telling him not to show his face again. After this brutal confrontation, Taejun wanders around at night, eventually buying some drinks. He sips quietly, gazing at the night sky, and sighs bitterly. He finds the drink pleasant, but looks at his severance pay with regret, realizing that all his hard work over 7 years has been reduced to this meager amount. Standing at the edge of the bridge, Taejun decides to end his suffering, feeling as though he has nothing left to hold on to in this world. At that moment, a system notification appears, warning him that his life is in danger and urging him to step back. Taejun responds sarcastically, questioning why the system suddenly cares for his life and if it knows the extent of his suffering over the past 7 years. He strikes the system window in anger, blaming it for giving him the useless skill, explosive growth, which has done nothing to enhance his level, wondering how he's supposed to survive with such a weak ability. The screen turns red, and a notice appears, indicating that the system will enter strike mode due to his unwarranted aggression. Taejun laughs maniacally, mocking the system and telling it to go on strike, saying he doesn't need such a pointless window. He throws his drink bottle at it, demanding it to disappear. Tears stream down his face as he expresses his despair, feeling that no matter how hard he tries, nothing changes. He angrily wonders what could have been if the system had explained his skill from the start. His frustration intensifies, and he shouts again, convinced that his life has been a nightmare and that he was never meant to endure such a miserable existence. The system window begins to shake slightly, turning blue as a message appears, confirming that the user's complaints have been received. Security personnel arrive, urging Taejun to step back from the bridge calmly, but he refuses their help, asking them not to interfere and insisting on choosing his own way to die. He retorts that they wouldn't stay calm if they were in his place, emphasizing they couldn't understand the depth of his suffering. Suddenly, Taejun's foot slips, and he falls towards the river. He feels a sense of calm, accepting that this will finally be his way out, believing it's better this way, as life in this miserable world seems meaningless to him. Several notifications from the system appear, indicating that the administrator has received his complaint and that Taejun will be transferred to the administrator's server immediately. The world around him shifts, with numerous digital displays and system windows starting to load. Taejun is stunned, unable to comprehend the sudden change, but waits as the system finishes loading, eventually turning golden. As dawn breaks, Taejun awakens with the first rays of sunlight, finding himself slumped on a street bench, nursing a sharp headache. Confused by his predicament, he realizes he must have spent the night drinking and sleeping outside like a beggar. Swearing that if he drinks again, he'll be no better than a dog, fragments of last night start to return. He recalls falling off the bridge, the strange interaction with the system window, and the odd updates it displayed. Initially, he convinces himself it was all a drunken hallucination, resigning to the reality that he's now unemployed. He wonders how he'll make a living, debating whether to work as a day laborer or try to become a hunter again, despite the difficulties he faces. Suddenly, a girl appears out of nowhere, asking if he liked the new version of the system window. Taejun is startled and questions her identity. She introduces herself as Miri from the System Window Management Department. Taejun rubs his eyes, unsure if this is reality or just a figment of his imagination. He soon realizes that the events of last night were real. Miri informs him that they assessed his leg injury and explosive growth skill, discovering that his system window was outdated and malfunctioning, failing to function as it should. She laughs as if she's told a joke, prompting Taejun to ask if this malfunction is the cause of all his suffering. Miri responds that she can't reveal further details due to security reasons, but assures him that the system window should now operate correctly. As she starts discussing his skill, Taejun interrupts her, seething with anger, accusing them of rendering his years of hard work meaningless. Miri tries to calm him, but he continues in a menacing tone, explaining that he trained tirelessly for 7 years, only to find that the fault lay not in him, but in an outdated system. Furious, Taejun unleashes his rage, demanding if she has any last words before he kills her, challenging how she dares to think she can compensate him for the years of agony that stole his life life away. Miri steps back, terrified by his justified fury, pleading with him to calm down and assuring him that she's restored all the stats he should have had and even fully healed his injuries. Stunned, Taejun looks down at his leg, testing its movement, only to find it completely healed as if it had never been injured. He asks how she managed this, and Miri explains that she can't reveal everything now, but notes that activating explosive growth requires a trigger, which is why she wants to make him an offer he can't refuse. Miri leads Taejun to the center of the city, where a giant gate has appeared, unleashing a monstrous creature that sprays acid, dissolving everything it touches. Panic erupts among the people, who scramble to contact suppression teams and hunters to contain the situation. As they arrive on the scene, Taejun incredulously asks if she's serious about sending him to face the creature alone, accusing her of sending him to his death, insisting that no matter his strength, he can't possibly defeat such a beast. Miri tries to reassure him, confidently stating that she believes in his abilities and that he can handle it. She smiles encouragingly, urging him to trust her and give it a shot, promising he won't lose anything by trying and that he'll be fine. In a brief moment of calm, Taejun observes the creature and notices it dispersing toxic pollen, realizing this monster is at least a C rank or higher, requiring a B rank or A rank hunter to defeat. Even a seasoned suppression team would struggle against it. Taejun sarcastically asks Miri if explosive growth will activate if he manages to defeat this monster, to which she confidently assures him it will. Though doubtful, Taejun hesitates to trust her, but recalls his miserable years in the guild as nothing more than a porter, where his efforts never seemed to make a difference. Realizing he has nothing left to lose, he decides that his life is already ruined, and anything more couldn't make it worse. Determined, he tells Miri he'll accept her request. Charging toward the monster, Taejun ignores the soldiers' attempts to stop him, brushing off their warnings of danger. He approaches the acid-spewing creature and endures a direct hit from the acid, shielding himself with his arm. Fueled by anger, he kicks the creature, shattering part of its acidic flower. Several notifications pop up in his system window, informing him that the small step forward skill has been completed and bold trial, a C-rank skill, has activated, along with the start of explosive growth. Taejun is stunned by the sudden flood of notifications after delivering just one blow to the monster. As he watches, more notifications continue to appear, highlighting massive boosts in his stats and level growth. Miri laughs in excitement, asking how he feels using explosive growth for the first time. Taejun bursts out in crazed laughter, admitting that the skill is beyond amazing. Miri cautions him against celebrating too soon, noting that the true power of explosive growth is only beginning to show, encouraging him to take down all the monsters in sight. Eagerly, Taejun rushes at the remaining monsters, using his new abilities to destroy each toxic flower connected to the main creature. The system window keeps displaying notifications, showing his rapid progression in level and abilities. With each monster he eliminates, a sense of elation grows within him, as if he's winning the jackpot thanks to this newfound skill. His excitement and power double with every strike until he finally reaches the monster's core body. Leaping into the air, he prepares to finish it off, feeling that, at this pace, he could reach a B-rank hunter's level within a week, perhaps even A-rank. Taejun lands a decisive blow on the monster, killing it instantly. Moments later, the guild team arrives, including young Jin, who is astonished to find the monster defeated even with the suppression team on standby. Frustrated, young Jin remarks that they missed all the fun. One of the other hunters asks if the person they're looking at is truly Taejun, to which young Jin confirms with a sneer, wondering aloud why a failure like him would be on the battlefield. Taejun's face holds a strange, almost manic expression, prompting young Jin to ask mockingly if Taejun has taken something suspicious. He approaches Taejun, tauntingly questioning if he even realizes his place, then orders him to leave, insisting that no matter what he tries, he'll never reach the level of a respectable hunter. Taejun is surprised to see young Jin and other guild hunters there, initially assuming they came to defeat the monster as well, though that no longer matters to him. Realizing his newfound physical strength gives him a chance for revenge, he begins plotting his next move, but a security officer interrupts, thanking him for his assistance and pointing out how dangerous the situation could have been without his intervention. Sensing an opportunity to improve his image, Taejun responds humbly, saying he did nothing special, merely fulfilling his duty as a hunter. Young Jin and the other hunters look at him in disgust, assuming he's pretending to be modest. The security officer approaches Taejun again, expressing admiration for the impressive and unusual way he handled the toxic flowers, calling it remarkable. Young Jin interrupts Taejun mockingly, demanding he repeat what he just said, sarcastically asking if Taejun truly means he handled all of this on his own. The security officer confirms it, asking if they have a problem with that. The hunters are shocked and confused by this revelation, while Taejun moves closer to Young Jin, suggesting they don't disturb the security personnel and that they should leave the area to talk elsewhere, where he can explain everything. Taejun leads Young Jin and the other hunters to an abandoned building, where Young Jin begins shouting, demanding a straightforward explanation of how a D-rank hunter like Taejun could pull off such a feat. He insists that Taejun answer without any evasive talk. Taejun recalls the notification he received from the system window, informing him of a mission to teach these rude hunters a lesson with the promise of an A-rank skill reward. Realizing this is his chance to regain his dignity and receive a deserved reward, Taejun feels as if he's killing two birds with one stone, avenging himself and gaining new power. Taejun kneels and tells them he apologizes in advance, as he must now show his other side and teach them a lesson. The hunters are taken aback, thinking he's lost his mind. Taejun continues with a calm, almost sympathetic expression, dramatically claiming he understands that this situation might surprise them. He admits he's new to the hunter world and isn't skilled at sweet talk, then asks if they object to him re-educating them. One of the hunters steps forward mockingly, questioning what nonsense Taejun is talking about, asking if he's making fun of them. The hunter lands a harsh punch on Taejun, telling him to stop the empty talk and answer the question directly. He strikes Taejun's head violently, shouting that in this world, everyone who commits a crime must be punished. Taejun's expression shifts to one of scorn as he replies, questioning if the hunter is serious. He raises his head, telling him that he indeed plans to punish him and that he should accept the punishment willingly, as he deserves it. The other hunter stares at Taejun in surprise, but before he can process what's happening, Taejun lands a powerful punch that sends him sprawling to the ground. The other hunters look on in shock, wondering if what they just witnessed was real, questioning how a hunter could collapse so easily. Taejun taunts them, inviting them to step forward one by one to receive their punishment for bullying their senior, challenging them to withstand even a tap on the forehead from him. Taejun turns to Young Jin, ominously stating that a tap on the forehead is still waiting for him. Taejun's taunting tone infuriates the hunters, who assume he must have lost his mind after what happened, his confidence likely due to some change in his abilities. One of the hunters steps forward with the intent to hit him, but Taejun swiftly lands a blow to his head, causing his nose to bleed. Taejun continues, delivering harsh punches to each one, teaching them a lesson in respect. Young Jin, watching the scene unfold, is left stunned, unable to believe what he's seeing. He questions the other hunters, asking if they're joking or if they're really unable to handle Taejun, for he can't believe that hunters with their skills could be defeated by someone like him. But indeed, all the hunters lie sprawled on the ground, with only Taejun left standing. Taejun calls out to Young Jin in a chilling tone, asking if he still thinks what happened was a joke. He informs him that he might let the others leave, but for Young Jin, there's no chance of escaping unharmed. With a menacing crack of his knuckles, Taejun warns him, "You'd better be ready for what's coming next." Young Jin, enraged by Taejun's high confidence, retorts that he seems to be rushing toward his own death. He activates his skill, forming sharp ice blades, and adds mockingly that Taejun may have developed some physical skills, but he shouldn't be so arrogant over such pathetic abilities. Declaring that he'll end the fight, Young Jin speaks with confidence, but Taejun replies mockingly, asking when he learned to create ice missiles. At that moment, a system notification notification appears, announcing the completion of a mission, and Taejin feels a surge of excitement to test out a new skill he just acquired. Gathering massive energy, Taejin forms a giant fireball, a recently acquired A-rank skill. The intense heat from the blazing sphere melts young Jin's ice blades and missiles, leaving him stunned, unable to comprehend what's happening. Taejin asks for young Jin's opinion on his new skill, noting that he's still learning to control its power. He jokes, warning him to be careful, as he might actually die if he isn't cautious. The fireball's heat continues to intensify, spreading its energy toward young Jin, whose eyes begin to water from the overwhelming heat. The fireball's force reaches a level strong enough to blow the entire place apart. Young Jin falls to the ground, visibly burned and in deep shock, barely able to believe he survived the attack. Taejin approaches him with a mocking tone, commenting that young Jin messed things up for himself, and expresses his disappointment in young Jin's actions, adding that even if he was scared, he shouldn't have shown such weakness. Standing over young Jin, Taejin leans in, warning him not to bully or harass guild members again, or else there will be dire consequences. Trembling, young Jin fearfully promises he'll never repeat his actions. Taejin, in a chilling tone, remarks that he might just give him an extra tap on the forehead to ensure he remembers this lesson. A few days later, due to the massive amount of energy he used in the fight, Taejin falls unconscious from extreme exhaustion. He remains immobile for 3 full days, despite Miri's continued attempts to wake him and bring him back to consciousness. Finally, Taejin awakens to the noise Miri is making, irritably asking her to lower her voice as he's in severe pain and utterly exhausted. Miri notices he's finally awake and asks how he's feeling. Taejin admits that he overexerted himself and used energy far beyond his body's capacity, recklessly driven by his excitement to test his new strength. He acknowledges that he now needs to focus on raising his mana level. Miri agrees, noting that his growth rate has been incredible and that he doesn't need to push himself so hard. Taejin explains that his extraordinary growth requires him to improve his mana level specifically, as his stats keep increasing, but his mana remains at the same level. He adds that if he continues hunting monsters in this condition, he'll find himself passing out repeatedly, especially since his fireball skill demands double the usual mana, making it crucial for him to enhance it. Miri sympathizes with Taejin's situation and asks if he knows a way to increase his mana level. Taejin replies that he knows just the place for it. A notification appears on his system window, indicating he has 8.5 hours to recover fully. Once the time passes, Taejin and Miri head to the training tower. Miri asks him about the tower, and Taejin explains that it's called the Training Tower, the best place to quickly increase one's mana level and a popular dungeon even for beginners. Miri wonders if this place is so well known, why no one else is around. Taejin explains that it used to be a popular tourist attraction years ago, though he isn't sure why it shut down. They notice an elderly man nearby who appears kind and unassuming, but surprises Taejin by addressing him as grandson and asking if his leg is all right. Taejin and Miri exchange confused glances, and Taejin clarifies that he's here for training. The old man mishears, asking if he wants fast food, warning him about unhealthy choices. Raising his voice, Taejin explains that he's here for training, not a quick meal. The old man finally understands, telling them that trainees come to the tower to face his trials. He laughs lightly and asks them to follow him into the tower. Miri feels slightly uneasy about the situation, but Taejin reassures her that he's fully prepared. They encounter a barrier of energy, signaling the portal between levels. The old man starts explaining the tower's system, but Taejin interrupts, explaining that the tower has 10 levels, with the first level requiring them to defeat 10 goblins. The old man laughs, confirming Taejin's knowledge, which astonishes Miri. She asks him how he knows so much about the tower. Proudly, Taejin explains that his knowledge of the tower surpasses anyone. Despite never having entered an actual training dungeon before, he watched countless YouTube videos, analyzing every detail about the tower, even learning strategies and combat techniques. Excitedly, he states that the first level will be easy for him. Miri encourages him, assuring him he'll be as impressive as always. The old man, seemingly hard of hearing, asks what Taejin just said, and Taejin laughs, telling him he was just talking to himself. The portal transports them to a vast green area. Meanwhile, the old man announces they've reached the first challenge and strikes the ground with his cane, summoning the monsters. However, the effort seems to tire him, which excites Taejin, and Miri reassures him that defeating 10 goblins should be easy. But instead of goblins, a large group of orcs emerges from the trees, shocking Taejin, who asks the old man why the goblins have transformed into these fearsome orcs. The old man, seemingly lost in his own world, mutters about wanting kimchi and steak, aggravating Taejin, who calls him a senile fool. The orcs begin their assault, and Miri, frightened, asks Taejin about their plan. Taejin, who has already assessed the situation, summons the power of his fireball, igniting the orcs as he yells that no matter what type of monster they are, he'll defeat them all. The creatures continue to burn under the scorching flames, and Taejin feels exhilarated as he watches them fall. Miri, however, notices an orc approaching from behind, but Taejin only has enough time to defend himself as the orc swings its club. Realizing this particular orc was unharmed, Taejin decides to test his endurance. He unleashes a series of punches and kicks that throw the orc off balance, ultimately knocking it to the ground. The system window appears with notifications indicating that the first level of the training tower has been successfully cleared, and the explosive growth rate has increased, along with his experience points. The old man approaches the charred orcs, complimenting Taejin on his speed in clearing the first level, remarking how easy it seemed. Taejin struggles to contain his frustration, telling the old man that the level was actually harder than usual. The old man chuckles, dismissing Taejin's complaint and insisting they proceed to the next stage, leaving Taejin fuming with the urge to rid himself of this annoying guide. As Taejin progresses through the stages, he realizes that the tower is nothing like he anticipated. The monsters are far stronger and appear in greater numbers, and the mental challenges are incredibly taxing. Physically and mentally drained, he begins to understand why others avoid this tower, realizing it has become less of a training ground and more of an almost impossible adventure. Surrounded by an increasing number of monsters, Taejin feels as though he won't survive and cries out for help, desperate to escape this nightmare. Finally, Taejin reaches the final stage where he faces the dungeon boss, Cerberus, an S-rank monster with a difficulty level of 90. Feeling hopeless, he realizes the impossibility of passing this stage. He had expected a fierce dog, but now stands before an enormous beast he can't hope to defeat, even with his all. Taejin tells Miri it might be best to give up on the reward, as he can't overcome this creature, no matter what. Just then, a system window pops up, announcing a special mission, revealing that the old man's mana imbalance is the cause of the chaos in the tower. Taejin realizes that the training tower relies entirely on the old man's mana, and his loss of control over it has made the monsters far stronger than usual. He considers that if he can restore the old man's mana to normal, he might be able to clear the final stage and complete the tower. Miri asks if he has any ideas for solving the problem. Taejin replies that he has a plan, though he's unsure it'll work, but he has no other choice. Rushing over to the old man, Taejin recalls hearing that powerful sorcerers could lose their minds if they lose control of their mana due to an overload. This likely means that the mana pathways in the old man's brain have become tangled and chaotic. Standing behind the old man, Taejin places his hands on his head as Miri watches with a mix of curiosity and concern, uncertain about what he's doing. With one hand, Taejin begins massaging the old man's head, making him feel relaxed as he requests specific areas to be pressed, enjoying the sensation. Taejin realizes this may look like an ordinary massage, but he's actually redirecting the tangled mana pathways in the old man's mind, attempting to restore a natural mana flow. Suddenly, a massive explosion erupts nearby from the flames spewed by the dungeon boss. Miri warns Taejin that the situation is getting extremely dangerous as molten lava inches closer. Taejin prays his method works, and just as the situation reaches a critical point, a major change occurs. The old man regains his energy, looking refreshed and revitalized, leaving Taejin and Miri in shock as the old man now seems 10 times stronger than Taejin himself. In disbelief, Taejin asks the old man who he really is, unable to comprehend the sudden transformation. The old man smiles, expressing a vitality he hasn't felt in ages, and then uses his power to defeat the dungeon boss in a single blow. Dramatically, the old man turns to Taejun, thanking him for saving him and offering to grant him any wish. At the same moment, a system window announces that the special mission has been completed successfully and that a hidden reward will be granted to the user. Taejun and Miri stand in amazement as the old man decides to perform 100 squats while lifting weights. Once finished, he tells Taejun that physical strength and training are key to handling high-density mana, which is his secret to becoming a great sorcerer. Flexing his muscles, he points out the mana flowing through them, inviting Taejun and Miri to check for themselves if they wish. Taejun laughs awkwardly, assuring the old man that he believes him. The old man then asks Taejun what his request is, assuring him that he can ask for anything. Embarrassed, Taejun admits that he has a shortage of mana and would appreciate it if the old man could help increase his mana capacity. Excited, the old man says it's a simple request and no trouble at all. He then uses a magical technique, assumes an attack stance, and delivers a powerful punch to Taejun's abdomen. Taejun feels an immense surge of energy flooding his body, his mind blazing with the sudden increase in mana capacity. Despite the pain from the punch, he tells the old man he almost lost his life from it. The old man laughs, explaining that from what he's seen, Taejun's issue isn't actually a lack of mana at all. Taejun, puzzled, asks the old man what he means. The old man explains that the real issue lies in the fireball skill itself, which consumes enormous amounts of mana. The version Taejun has been using isn't the basic one, but an enhanced version that requires much more energy but uses mana inefficiently, offering little benefit for the high consumption. With confidence, the old man assures Taejun not to worry, as he will help him completely rebuild the blazing fireball skill from scratch. After some training and practice, Taejun finally gains control over the new, refined fireball. Later, he heads with Miri to the Legend Guild, a massive complex equipped with the latest technology. At the entrance, he is greeted by Lee Suna, an A-rank hunter, who gestures for him to approach, and Taejun returns her greeting. Miri, curious, asks who Suna is and if Taejun knows her. Taejun explains that she's an old friend from the Awakening Center for hunter training. Miri, surprised, remarks that she didn't expect him to have any friends, which annoys Taejun, who assures her he's not that miserable. Miri then asks why he called Suna here. Taejun explains that he came to test the new fireball skill he learned from the old man in the tower and chose the Legend Guild because it has the country's largest safe training facility. He adds that the original fireball was enough to destroy an entire building, so the modified skill will be much stronger, hence his need for a safe space. Miri jokes, noting that he has more connections than she expected. Suna overhears and asks Taejun what he said, and he quickly replies that he wasn't saying anything to her. They take the elevator to the training arena, and Suna comments on how long it's been since they last met, asking how he's been. Taejun replies that he's been doing his duties as a hunter, but Suna moves closer, asking him to swear it, as she suspects he's changed somehow. She notes his newfound confidence compared to the past, when he always seemed in need of help. Suna quickly changes the topic, mentioning that she's surprised another person requested to use the training arena on the same day. Taejun asks if he'll have someone else training alongside him, and Suna says he'll be curious to see who it is. When the doors open, Taejun's face shows shock as he spots Choi Jin-hyuk, an A-rank hunter from the Pishon Guild, in the training arena. Choi and Taejun exchange hostile glares, prompting Suna to ask about the tense atmosphere, noting the last time they saw each other was a year ago. Both men remain silent, so Suna begins explaining the arena's system. She explains that the arena is a virtual space created by the trainees' own mana, and the strength of the training monsters depends on the amount of mana used. She demonstrates how to create monsters, gathering mana in her hands and concentrating it, which transforms the mana into a small, feral rabbit. She jokes that she created a cute monster, though Taejun finds it far from cute. Suna asks if the explanation is clear, and she heads off to get some drinks, leaving them to try the system at their own pace. As soon as she leaves, silence fills the arena, making it evident that Choi and Taejun can't stand each other. Taejun decides to try summoning a monster using mana and successfully calls forth a large, powerful orc. He begins begins warming up, throwing rapid punches and kicks at the orc until he finally takes it down. With a smirk, he remarks that fighting the orc was nothing more than a warm-up. Watching from a distance, Choi suddenly asks him, in an unexpectedly serious tone, if he's the one responsible. Taejin turns to Choi, surprised, as Choi begins verbally attacking him, demanding that he stop playing the innocent and confess to being the one who assaulted the new guild recruits. Taejin remains silent, letting Choi continue, who says he initially didn't believe it but now is convinced after seeing Taejin's newfound strength. Choi approaches Taejin aggressively, questioning if he's awakened a new skill and asking how he could choose to harm guild members, his so-called family and comrades, after becoming stronger. Taejin recalls that Choi was once one of the few friends he could rely on at the Hunter Training Center. However, after joining the Pishon Guild and rising in rank, Choi gradually changed into the person now standing before him. Taejin responds provocatively, admitting he did indeed hit the new recruits, asking Choi what he plans to do about it. Shocked by Taejin's change in personality, Choi listens as Taejin explains that he taught those bullies a lesson because they had attacked him first. He also reminds Choi that he had witnessed Taejin being beaten and did nothing to intervene, even though he could have stopped young Jin. Enraged, Choi grabs Taejin by the neck, calling him bold with a long tongue. Taejin, jokingly gasping for breath, remarks that he can't breathe and has no choice but to defend himself. Choi hesitates, but before he can react, Suna returns to the arena with drinks, surprised to find them fighting, and angrily demands to know the reason behind their brawl. Choi, using his sharp spear technique, attacks Taejin, who skillfully dodges but quickly realizes the danger of the situation, telling Choi that their time is up. Furious, Choi insists he won't let Taejin back out, but before he can finish his sentence, he receives a powerful kick from Taejin. Though it causes some damage, Choi manages to withstand it, admitting Taejin has grown much stronger and that he'll need to take this seriously. Taejin taunts him, saying he should have been serious from the start. Provoked further by Taejin's remarks, Choi activates his Thunder Spear skill, a powerful lightning technique. Suna screams a warning to Choi, urging him not to use Thunder Spear here. However, with a smirk, Taejin tells Choi that he expected him to use that skill and won't hold back either. Taking an offensive stance, he surprises both Miri and Suna as he prepares to unleash the enhanced S-rank blazing fireball he learned from the great sorcerer. Taejin gathers his energy into the blazing fireball and hurls it toward Choi, who stands frozen, unable to block the incoming attack. Just as the fireball is about to hit Choi, someone intervenes, slicing through the fireball's energy with a sword, shocking everyone present. The figure reveals himself to be Cha Soo-hyun, the vice president of the Legend Guild and an S-rank hunter. He reprimands Taejin, pointing out that this isn't an ordinary fireball and that using such a dangerous skill against a comrade could have led to a serious incident. Realizing the gravity of his mistake, Taejin attempts to explain himself, telling Vice President Cha that he wasn't fully aware of what he was doing, as he was overwhelmed by the sheer power. It was, after all, his first time using the skill. Choi smirks, delighted that the situation has turned in his favor, as Taejin now finds himself in a difficult position. Vice President Cha, however, approaches Taejin with a look of approval and then gently invites him to join the Legend Guild. Choi, stunned, can hardly believe what he's hearing, watching as the vice president of the guild, one of the rare S-rank hunters, offers Taejin a place in his guild. Cha speaks warmly to Taejin, expressing that he has never seen a fireball as powerful as his and is impressed by Taejin's ability to push basic skills to their limits. He assures Taejin that a talented hunter like him would be a valuable addition to the Legend Guild. With a bright smile, Cha renews his invitation for Taejin to join them. Taejin considers it for a moment, realizing that joining Legend, one of the top 4 guilds in Korea, would offer him countless benefits. Taejin responds, saying he's heard that a hunter must constantly train to surpass his own limits. Cha asks him what kind of training he has in mind, and Taejin enthusiastically explains that he had arranged to compete with a colleague today to test his abilities. Choi is surprised and objects, saying he never agreed to a competition with Taejin. Taejin continues, saying that his duel with Choi today made him realize that Choi Jin-hyuk is like a mountain he must overcome. overcome, which is why he feels unprepared to join the guild. He must first conquer these mountains. Choi, now angered, yells, insisting their fight was just a quarrel, not a competition. Cha laughs heartily, affirming that a spirit of combat and training is essential for a hunter, and he admires Taejin's determination. He then asks for Taejin's name and rank, and Taejin responds that he's a D-rank hunter. Cha expresses regret, considering it a great loss for such talent to remain at the D rank, and promises to help him achieve more. By the end of the day, Cha gives Taejin a letter of recommendation, encouraging him to participate in the B rank qualification test that will take place in a month. Although initially hesitant, Taejin realizes that the higher a hunter's rank, the more powerful dungeons they can access, making this an opportunity he can't ignore. A month later, Taejin arrives at the B rank qualification test site, amazed by the grandeur of the place. Even the air feels different. Miri comments, noting that Cha's recommendation reflects just how impressed he was by Taejin. Taejin replies proudly, saying, "Talent attracts talent, and that it's only natural he's in a place like this." Miri asks why he turned down the Legend Guild's invitation despite all their support. Taejin replies greedily, explaining that he refused because of the money. He elaborates that hunters affiliated with guilds must give a portion of their earnings from missions to the guild, which isn't worth it for him. He adds that guilds treat hunters like slaves and abandon them if they're injured, so he'd never join a guild under those conditions. His main goal is wealth. Suddenly, he hears someone greeting him, and it turns out to be Yun Siran, a C-rank hunter from the Shinyon Guild. Siran asks if he's here to take the tests, and Taejin greets her, asking if she knows him. Siran responds, saying she certainly does, as rumors about him are widespread. She adds that her guild has a strong interest in recruiting him, especially after hearing that the vice president of the Legend Guild himself was keen on bringing him in, which embarrasses Taejin as he realizes Cha may have talked about him more than he expected. At that moment, a third person joins them, claiming he came to see what all the fuss was about, and remarks that all he sees is an ordinary mid-tier hunter, unimpressed by the hype. He introduces himself as Kang Jun, a C-rank hunter from the Hwarang Guild, confidently declaring that he's destined to be the greatest hunter of this generation. Taejin and Siran exchange surprised glances at the boastful newcomer, but their thoughts are interrupted by the announcement over the microphone that the B-rank evaluation test is about to begin. The announcer introduces the supervising hunter, Choi Jin-hyuk, from the Pishon Guild. Taejin is stunned to see Choi here, and Choi steps onto the stage, briefly outlining the details of the test. Choi explains that the test will take place in a specially designed dungeon where the 8 participants will be divided into pairs. Each team will work together to clear the dungeon, which contains specific points marked A, B, C, and D that they must reach. The first 2 teams to arrive at the meeting point will have the opportunity to face the dungeon boss. Choi also mentions that the test will be broadcast live, with points updated in real time, adding the challenge of maintaining peak performance. Choi begins calling teams to the gate. He announces the first team as Siran and Gaeon, the second team as Yang and Arim, the third as Yi and Hyung, and the fourth, Hyun and Taejin. Taejin meets Hyun and greets him, to which Hyun responds with a nervous smile, expressing his anticipation of working together. The duo heads toward their gate as Choi watches them with a sharp gaze, having set up a sinister plan to make the test difficult for Taejin. Earlier, Choi had summoned Hyun to the Pishon Guild and requested him to join the B-rank test, specifically asking him to sabotage Taejin. He rigged Path D to be more challenging than the others, adding obstacles to ensure Taejin wouldn't pass easily. Choi spoke to Hyun with a veiled threat, asking about his sick mother and subtly reminding him to take this opportunity to secure funds for her treatment. Choi promised him a generous reward if he followed instructions precisely, urging him to trust him and comply. As the test begins, monsters appear, and a serpent lunges at them. Taejin kills it effortlessly. A notification window shows a slight stat increase, though Taejin is disappointed at the low experience points. Hyun, observing from behind, is shocked by the power Taejin has gained. He never imagined that Taejin, who was weak and unable to kill any monsters just a short time ago, would become so strong. Only weeks before, the two of them had worked together as guild porters, among the weakest members. Despite their humble beginnings, Taejin had always praised Hyun for his skill in absorbing enemy attacks, encouraging him with the belief that he'd become a successful hunter one day. He treated him like a younger brother, giving him hope when he needed it most. Now, Hyun is being asked to make Taejin fail this test. Feeling a mix of resentment and guilt, Hyun knows he has no other choice. He sees no other way to pay for his mother's surgery. The guilt weighs on him, yet he resolves to carry out his task for his family's sake. Hyun offers Taejin a drink, saying it's an energy boost he always brings on missions, and suggesting Taejin keep one on hand as well. Taejin accepts the drink gratefully and begins drinking it. Meanwhile, Hyun thinks his plan is working and that the poison will soon start weakening Taejin. Shortly after finishing the drink, Taejin begins feeling stomach pain, jokingly wondering if there's a restroom nearby. Hyun tells him there are no restrooms in the dungeon, causing Taejin to regret not going before the test started, and he resolves to finish the dungeon quickly. To Hyun's surprise, the poison doesn't affect Taejin as expected. A notification window pops up, showing that the poison resistance skill has activated, confirming Taejin's immunity to poison. After some time, the two reach a steep slope, and Taejin notices that the path seems blocked. He remarks that it feels like they're going in circles. Hyun sees the slope as his only chance to hinder Taejin and lunges at him, trying to push him over the edge. However, things backfire, and Hyun himself ends up falling off the slope. Taejin quickly grabs his leg, angrily asking why he would try to kill himself like this. Tearfully, Hyun confesses, admitting he was trying to make Taejin fail the test and that he risked his life for his own selfish gain, begging Taejin to let him fall, as he doesn't feel he deserves to survive. Taejin, determined, tries to pull Hyun up, telling him to stop with such talk. At the same time, he feels a stomach pain flare up again. Curious, he decides to open his live stream, only to find about 10 viewers watching, which embarrasses him, prompting him to quickly close it. Suddenly, both of them lose their balance and slip from the edge, though they fortunately avoid serious injuries, sustaining only minor aches and bruises. Their real shock comes when they find themselves surrounded by a swarm of snakes. Taejin and Hyun realize they have a long night ahead, facing this overwhelming number of monsters. The broadcast shows Team B in dire straits, visibly exhausted and struggling. Meanwhile, in Team 2, Arim panics at the sight of the slain snakes and fleas, leaving her teammate to fend off the monsters alone, resulting in their disqualification from the test. Team 3 also faces cooperation issues, bringing them close to disqualification as well. This leaves only Team 1 performing well. Saran steps up to the camera, announcing to the viewers that she's about to take on the 1,000-year white serpent, preparing herself for battle. However, Jian, her teammate, attacks the serpent first, catching her off guard. She asks him why he acted so recklessly, taking on the monster alone, and he replies that he wouldn't miss such a chance to impress the guild leader, seeing this test as the perfect opportunity to stand out. Annoyed by Jian's attempt to steal the spotlight, Saran declares that she won't allow it. She uses her forest wind technique and attacks the serpent with full force, determined to be the star of the test, not just a side character. Team 1's progress is clearly evident, and their level continues to rise, showcasing the exceptional potential of members from the top 4 guilds. Finally, Team 1 reaches the dungeon boss, and as they exit the gate, they find Choi waiting for them, congratulating them on reaching this stage as he had expected. He informs them that he'll now take them to the boss's chamber. Siran asks about Taejin's team, mentioning she noticed no live feed from them. Choi comments that this likely means they've been eliminated. Jian sneers, claiming Taejin didn't deserve all that attention in the first place. Siran expresses her disappointment, explaining that she had hoped to see the hunter recommended by Vice President Cha. Choi leads them to the boss's room, feeling smug about Taejin's absence, which suggests that Hyun succeeded in his task. He can't help but relish the thought of Vice President Cha's disappointment upon hearing of Taejin's failure. As Team 1 enters the boss chamber, they're met with an unexpected sight. All the monsters in the room are already dead. They stand there in disbelief, unable to comprehend what happened, wondering who could have taken down all the monsters in such a manner. While Choi and the others were in the boss's chamber, Taejin was utilizing Hyun's ability to navigate the snake cave. Hyun possessed a unique skill that allowed him to absorb magical energy from incoming attacks, reshape it, and return it to the attacker. The more energy he absorbed, the stronger the counterattack, with its potency depending on the user's capacity. By combining this absorption skill with the fireball technique, Taejun and Hyun created a new skill they dubbed the collaborative Hell Train. Hyun moved at incredible speed through the snake cave, covering a significant distance, but fatigue set in midway, and his strength began to wane. Taejun asked him coolly if he could still handle more fireballs, to which Hyun, though exhausted, replied affirmatively, reigniting his determination as Taejun urged him to reach the boss's chamber as fast as possible. In the boss's room, Choi, Seiran, and John were still trying to grasp the situation. According to the plan, the dungeon boss should have been an emoji, yet what they encountered defied explanation. The only emoji present was dead, and instead, a lich sat upon a throne, a completely unexpected presence. Choi suspected someone had tampered with the dungeon. John and Seiran, feeling confused, questioned Choi about how the lich got there. The lich then stood up from the throne, resurrected the dead emoji, and commanded it to attack. Choi quickly ordered everyone to get behind him as the emoji launched a swift assault. Choi dodged the attack, while John and Seiran, refusing to stand idle, joined the battle. Seiran used icy arrows, and John unleashed his rising dragon fist against the massive emoji. However, despite their intense assault, the emoji remained largely unaffected. Choi shouted a warning to the group, advising them to take down the lich first, as it was controlling the emoji. Charging at the lich, Choi was seized mid-attack by the emoji, which began squeezing him tightly. Choi felt the air leave his lungs, blaming his own impulsiveness for the predicament. Just as he was resigning to his fate, a powerful strike from Taejun and Hyun sent the emoji sprawling to the ground. Hyun expressed relief at their successful arrival, while Choi, still in shock, felt grateful to be alive, though puzzled by their timely appearance. Choi quickly raised his voice, warning Taejun and Hyun, who were celebrating their arrival, of the emoji's presence behind them and urged them to move immediately. The two narrowly dodged the emoji's next attack. Taejun questioned Choi about the situation, noting that the combination of a lich and an emoji made this level far too challenging for a B-rank assessment. Choi speculated that someone might have manipulated the assessment settings, potentially to prevent any trainees from passing and possibly to benefit or control certain guilds. Taejun responded, claiming he understood, although he truly didn't, and suggested they focus on defeating the lich to clear the dungeon. Choi agreed, admitting he didn't like working with Taejun, but that circumstances left him no choice. Taejun replied that the feeling was mutual, calling it a temporary alliance. Each unleashed their best skills, and Taejun eagerly asked Hyun if he could still absorb more fireballs, to which Hyun, showing signs of fatigue, responded wearily. At that moment, the emoji gathered venom in its mouth and unexpectedly spat it toward them. Choi shouted, warning Taejun to stay alert. Taejun gathered a fireball, assuring Choi that he was keeping an eye on the attack. Using 20% of its power, he successfully neutralized the poisonous assault and struck the emoji. Choi seized the moment, preparing his spears and activating the second stance of the heavenly spear. He shouted, vowing to destroy the beast. Choi charged forward with lightning speed. As the flames from the fireball scorched the emoji, he delivered a powerful strike with his sharp spears, successfully defeating it under the lich's astonished gaze. Siren pointed out that this was the perfect time to attack the lich, now defenseless. John, eager for his moment of glory, declared that as a great fighter, he wouldn't miss such an opportune strike. He delivered a powerful punch directly at the lich, landing it in a vulnerable spot. Excited, Taejun had Hyun absorb another fireball, telling him that they made a strong team and could not lose as long as they worked together, encouraging him to give his best in the final attack. Hyun, though exhausted, agreed and absorbed the fireball, dashing forward and inflicting severe wounds on the lich. Choi thought they had succeeded, but all of them were stunned when they realized the lich was still alive, their attack insufficient to bring it down. Instead, the attack seemed to have enraged the lich, prompting it to unleash its magic by summoning spikes from beneath the ground, causing serious injuries to the entire team. Taejun pondered that no matter how powerful the lich was, it couldn't be invulnerable to such attacks. He felt something was missing, suspecting they didn't have complete information about the lich. lich. Miri then appeared, reminding Taejin of her presence and explaining the difficulties she faced in downloading an app, expressing her eagerness to continue fighting using the map hacking key. Confused, Taejin asked her what she meant by map hacking, and suddenly a system window appeared, beginning to load information about the dungeon. Taejin watched in amazement as the process completed, showing a notification that the dungeon map would be rebuilt according to the new information, and a navigation grid appeared on the ground. The system announced the activation of green navigation, though Taejin was unfamiliar with it. Miri explained that this feature would allow him to gain extensive information about the dungeon, including the energy paths the enemy used in their skills, hidden paths, and available rewards. She added that he could learn much about dungeons with this feature, and that she had downloaded several other applications, advising him to use them wisely during the battle. Taejin began reviewing the information provided by the navigation system, astonished, remarking that it wasn't merely a map hack, but more like a personal assistant. He could hardly believe that such a feature existed, as Taejin discovered, just as Choi had suspected, that the true boss of the dungeon was a B-class emoji. He began questioning the lich's identity and how it had ended up here. The lich laughed loudly, activating the green translation feature, and Taejin understood the lich's words. Eratos is most pleased. Taejin was shocked, feeling the situation growing more frightening, and asked Miri if she had any idea what was happening. She admitted that she didn't have enough information, suggesting that it might be a system error. The lich laughed again, declaring that the gathering of so many humans here made Eratos grateful to the contractor. Miri, puzzled by the statement, told Taejin that the translator might be malfunctioning. However, Taejin doubted this, thinking the translator seemed to be functioning accurately. The lich's mention of a contractor hinted that someone may have summoned it to this dungeon. Choi struggled to his feet despite his injuries, asking Taejin if he could still move, relieved that he had narrowly avoided any fatal injuries. Taejin replied, uncertain if Choi would believe him, that he thought he had uncovered the monster's weakness. Surprised, Choi asked how he made this discovery, but Taejin interrupted, saying there was no time to explain and that Choi needed to trust him and work together. Observing Taejin's serious expression, Choi considered the plan carefully and asked about the next step. Taejin smirked slyly, stating that their first move was to provoke and enrage the lich. Taejin taunted the lich, mockingly asking why it hadn't attacked yet, insinuating that perhaps its brain had stopped working. Enraged, the lich retorted that such insolence would lead to an early death, vowing to kill them all. Fueled by fury, the lich unleashed its magical power, causing the cave to tremble as spikes erupted from the ground. Taejin quickly shouted for everyone to get behind him immediately. Spikes emerged everywhere with greater intensity than before, but the team narrowly avoided them just in time. Taejin was thrilled that the navigation system had allowed him to anticipate the lich's attacks and evade them, boosting his confidence in the success of his plan. Taejin continued to provoke the lich, mockingly pointing out that none of its attacks had landed, laughing and suggesting it should practice aiming before trying to engage with them again. Choi grew concerned about the intensity of Taejin's provocations, fearing the lich's retaliation. Sure enough, the lich's anger escalated, and it began hurling flaming skulls at them. Taejin observed the trajectory of the attack and shouted instructions, directing Jeon to move 3 steps to the right and Hyun 5 steps back. The skulls missed them entirely, leaving everyone astonished by their ability to evade the devastating assault and pleased by the success of Taejin's plan. The lich, impressed by their dodging, raised its voice, warning that it would demonstrate true evasion in the next attack. The pressure in the chamber intensified, and everyone sensed the impending danger of the next assault. Choi shouted, asking Taejin how they could avoid it. Taejin noted the attack's trajectory and realized that it covered their entire bodies and the entirety of the dungeon. He deduced that the only way to evade it was to head straight toward the lich. The team charged toward the lich's position with all their might as it unleashed its death's prayer, an attack that blanketed the dungeon. The lich taunted them, saying that their constant evasion would only make it easier for him to cast a spell they could not escape. Emerging from the smoky haze surrounding the lich, Taejin shouted at Seiran to quickly use her cooling technique on it. The lich was startled, expressing disbelief that anyone could survive its attack and reach its position unscathed. The secret behind their success lay in Death's Prayer, which grew stronger the farther one was from its center, while its effectiveness dropped to just 10% at the core. Using the navigation system, Taejun had discovered this and minimized the damage with the icy shield Seiran had created. Taejun yelled that this was their chance. Seiran responded, stating she would handle it, and used her frost winds technique to freeze the Lich in place. Immobilized, the Lich acknowledged their skill, commending them for disrupting Eratos's attack, but scoffed, assuring them that their efforts would not affect it. Taejun instructed Seiran to maintain the freeze and prevent any movement at all costs, then dashed away to a different location, catching the Lich off guard. The Lich questioned his destination, stunned by the possibility that Taejun might have uncovered its secret. Taejun pondered that the Lich, summoned by a contract, used the sacrifices of the contractor as vessels. As long as these vessels remained intact, the Lich would stay in a near-immortal state. Rushing toward a fortified cell with iron bars, Taejun discovered a cursed protected chest, realizing that this chest was the Lich's main body. If they could destroy it, the summoning could be cancelled. Meanwhile, the Lich, seething with anger, screamed, demanding how Taejun dared deceive Eratos. Breaking Seiran's freezing spell, it charged at Taejun, vowing to show no mercy. Taejun attempted to evade the Lich's assault, but it closed in, nearly striking him directly. At the last second, Choi and the team intervened, blocking the Lich's attack. With a mocking tone, Choi addressed the Lich, asking where it thought it was going and warning it not to move without permission. He attacked the Lich with his spears at full force, successfully halting its pursuit of Taejun. Choi held the Lich down, with Hyun assisting to restrain it and prevent movement. Choi urged Taejun to continue his plan, assuring him they would keep the situation under control. Taejun thanked Choi and continued toward the chest, leaping with force to break through the protective barrier and reach it. Choi kept a vigilant eye on the situation as he pinned the Lich down, wondering about the weaknesses Taejun had discovered and whether they related to this location. At that moment, the Lich, overcome with rage, shouted that it was impossible. No one could locate the chest except for itself and the contractor. Breaking free from Choi's grasp, the Lich lunged at Taejun, desperate to stop him before he could act on the chest, but it was too late. Taejun seized the chest and faced the Lich, threatening to smash it if it attempted anything. The Lich, taken aback, questioned how Taejun could understand the ancient language it spoke. Taejun, in a warning tone, told it to listen carefully. He proposed that if the Lich cooperated with them, they might spare its life. The Lich replied that it had been summoned by the contractor and could only obey or respond to the contractor's orders. Taejun, slightly exasperated, explained that if the chest were destroyed, the contract would be nullified, granting the Lich freedom. Stunned, the Lich expressed disbelief, claiming that only a powerful sorcerer could cancel the contract, yet Taejun appeared to be an ordinary person. Taejun responded confidently, asking if he really seemed like an ordinary person. Realizing that Taejun had not only deduced its powers and attack patterns, but also discovered the location of the cursed chest, the Lich wondered if Taejun truly had the ability to break the contract. Finally, it conceded, agreeing to trust his word this time. The Lich asked Taejun if he had any wishes, promising that Eratos would fulfill them. Taejun, surprised by the Lich's sudden shift in tone, felt it was time to wrap things up, but requested the Lich release all the skeletons it had summoned outside first. The Lich, puzzled, asked Taejun how that could be done. Taejun explained that someone specific must have summoned those skeletons before they entered, and that person was likely Eratos, as the skeletons had been blocking the rest of the team from entering. He added that the green navigation system had indicated this information. Taejun warned the Lich that if he discovered any deception, he would personally take its head. Reluctantly, the Lich agreed, and Taejun admitted they now understood each other, at least on some level. The Lich then asked respectfully if Taejun had any other requests or wishes. Pausing briefly, Taejun replied with his usual greed, demanding that the Lich give him everything it had. The Lich was shocked, visibly unsettled, and wondered at Taejun's sudden, bold request without any preamble. Taejun slyly remarked that the Lich must have some tools or accessories he could offer. The Lich, irritated, replied that he had nothing useful to give. Taejun's gaze settled on the Lich's staff, commenting that it might prove helpful. The Lich immediately recoiled, refusing to part with it. With an innocent smile, Taejun threatened to break the chest, forcing forcing the Lich to hand over the staff reluctantly. The Lich then pleaded with Taejin to cancel the contract, promising to fulfill any request in return. Taejin, feigning confusion, responded that he had no idea how to cancel it. The Lich, stunned, fell silent, and Taejin mocked him, asking how he could cancel a contract without even knowing how to perform summoning magic, his tone dripping with sarcasm as he requested the Lich to speak clearly. Furious, the Lich's energy flared around him as he screamed, threatening Taejin for daring to insult Eratos. Taejin quickly warned that if the Lich came any closer, he would destroy the cursed chest. With that, he smashed the chest containing the Lich's main body. The Lich began to fade, lamenting his end, saying that manifesting as the great Eratos had been his greatest opportunity before he vanished dramatically. Taejin, smiling, commented to Miri that the Lich had been rather dignified and charismatic, even in death. Miri agreed, and Taejin picked up a finger from the ground, wondering aloud if this was the contractor's sacrifice. He speculated that the contractor must have considered it important enough to sacrifice a finger to summon the Lich. Miri wondered who might have summoned it, suggesting that the summoner was likely targeting Taejin. Taejin, unfazed, replied that it didn't matter now. As long as he acquired powerful items, he was satisfied. Miri remarked that he was a shamelessly materialistic person, then pointed out another item still lying on the ground. Taejin moved toward it, examining it and commenting that he didn't know what it was, but if it was part of the Lich's setup, it had to be valuable. Just then, Choi and the rest of the team arrived, asking if he was all right. Taejin discreetly stored the staff before they reached him, assuring them that he was in excellent shape. Surprised, Choi asked if he had actually managed to defeat the Lich alone. Taejin boasted that he had indeed vanquished it completely, leaving no trace. Though reluctant, John admitted that what Taejin had done was impressive and worthy of recognition as a skilled hunter. Hyun and Seren also praised Taejin, noting that his feat was remarkable, especially since he had taken down the monster by himself. Choi approached Taejin seriously, and, with some embarrassment, apologized for his past attempt to poison and push him off the edge, admitting that he had instructed Hyun to carry out the act. Choi explained that his jealousy of Taejin's growth and increasing strength, despite lacking natural talent, had driven him to such actions, expressing deep regret. Taejin smiled, telling him that if he was going to apologize, he should do so properly. Annoyed, Choi asked what he meant, to which Taejin replied indifferently, suggesting they forget the past and celebrate his promotion to a B-class hunter by having dinner together next time. Choi offered to cover the bill, then leaned in, asking if Taejin was interested in Suna. Taejin, taken aback, teased Choi, suggesting that he seemed infatuated with her. Choi, flustered and embarrassed, insisted that it wasn't as it appeared. Before the conversation could continue, Hyun interrupted, pointing out a portal that had appeared in the area. Delighted, everyone recognized it as the exit portal that would finally return them to the real world. Hyun expressed his excitement, declaring that he would feast to his heart's content to make up for the exhaustion of the battle. Taejin announced that it was time to head back, but as soon as he felt the danger had passed, his stomach rumbled with hunger. Upon exiting the portal, they found a crowd of hunters waiting outside, congratulating them on passing the evaluation to become B-class hunters. Taejin was surprised to see prominent hunters among those present, such as Seo Yun-hwa from the Sky Guild and Mate Byung-min from the Hwarang Guild, both top hunters in the country. Taejin wondered why they were there. Mate began speaking, noting evidence that someone had tampered with the dungeon's settings. She pointed out several anomalies, such as the transformation of the emoji into a zombie, the unexpected appearance of the Lich, and the unusually high number of monsters that should not have been there. She concluded that all these events could be orchestrated by a powerful entity seeking control over either the Sky Guild or the Hwarang Guild. Mate then stepped closer to Taejin, accusing him of being responsible for everything that happened. Taejin, along with Seiran and Jeon, was shocked by Seo's words. Seiran asked what she meant, while Jeon argued that Taejin had fought alongside them against the monsters, making it impossible impossible for him to be the culprit. Seo replied that their statements implied Taejin had handled the task alone, adding that they had monitored his battle against the Lich through a live feed. They had seen how he dodged the Lich's attacks based on calculated moves, discovered the hidden location, but couldn't see what was concealed there. Seo added that suspicion grew because a D-class hunter like Taejin wasn't supposed to possess such critical information used during the fight. Doubt began to creep into Seiran and John's minds. Seo approached Taejin and asked if he had prior knowledge of the Lich's presence in the dungeon. Taejin found himself in a tough spot as he genuinely had no prior information. Mate then questioned his hesitation, threatening to turn him into fried potatoes if he didn't answer quickly. Taejin, realizing Mate was serious, felt a surge of fear and tried to calm himself, thinking of a way out. Recalling his battle with the Lich and the contractor's sacrifice, Taejin began speaking, telling them he would explain everything if they listened for a few minutes. He started recounting his childhood dream of becoming a mage, which surprised Seo and Mate, as it seemed unrelated to the current situation. Taejin continued, explaining that since childhood, he had been interested in magic, the characteristics of undead skills, and their weaknesses, which allowed him to deduce that the Lich's weakness was hidden in a specific spot. Seo scoffed, saying it was hard to believe such nonsense. Taejin replied that if she didn't believe him, he would provide proof. All the hunters were astonished when Taejin produced the contractor's finger, explaining that he found it inside the cursed chest, and confirming it as evidence that someone had made a pact with the Lich. He pointed out that Choi's statement was correct. The original dungeon boss was the B-class emoji, and someone had summoned the Lich to create chaos and sabotage the test. He urged them to consider that the Lich couldn't disobey the contractor's orders, meaning none of the hunters who had faced its lethal attacks could have been involved in summoning it. Seo reflected on Taejin's words, realizing his explanation made sense. If Taejin had been the one manipulating the test, there would have been no reason for him to protect the other hunters from the Lich's attacks. Mate, visibly agitated, asked who could be behind it, wondering if the culprit was someone from the Black Magic Guild. Taejin, smiling confidently, declared that the truth was obvious and that the culprit was among them. Raising his voice, he requested that the hunters search everyone's hands in the hall for any missing marks. The hunters began checking hands until they noticed someone looking tense, who suddenly bolted from the scene. Realizing that he was likely the owner of the missing finger, everyone chased after him immediately. Miri looked at Taejin in amazement, asking how he knew the culprit was among them. Taejin, nonchalant, replied that this was the usual outcome in detective stories, where they catch the suspect this way. Miri rolled her eyes at his flimsy explanation. Mate called out to Seo, requesting her help to catch the fugitive. Seo assured him that she wouldn't let the culprit escape, using her power to create walls around him, trapping him in place. Mate lunged at the man, scolding him for daring to approach the trainees and attempting to harm them, vowing never to forgive him. He used his Dragon Strike skill to attack, but was taken aback when the man collapsed to the ground, foaming at the mouth. He had taken his own life to avoid capture. Mate ordered his hunters to quickly take the body to the Alliance headquarters to investigate the man's background, origins, and intentions. Seo, reflecting on what had happened, pondered who would resort to dark magic to target the Sky Guild and the Hwarang Guild. She resolved to uncover the identity of the person responsible, no matter who they were. Approaching Taejin, she apologized for doubting him and misunderstanding the situation, promising to make it up to him. But before she could finish, Taejin suddenly collapsed, his mana completely drained. They rushed to provide him with medical aid and took him to a safe place. A short while later, Taejin opened his eyes, wondering where he was, only to find Choi and Suna by his side. He noticed the happiness on Suna's face as she told him she'd come as soon as she heard he had collapsed, worried about him. Choi, with a smirk, commented that he was only there to check if Taejin was alive or dead. Suna, concerned, asked why he'd pushed himself so far to the point of exhaustion, mentioning that the doctors had struggled to treat him and that he'd left a strong impression in the B-class evaluation. Curious, Taejin listened as Suna pulled out her phone, showing him the trending news online where people were talking about his achievement and how he had single-handedly defeated the Lich. Taejun took the phone, seeing the positive comments and admiration for his performance. Feeling a hint of jealousy, Choi remarked that everyone was talking as if Taejun had defeated the Lich alone, adding that without him, Taejun wouldn't have accomplished anything. Suna playfully teased Choi, pointing out that the video clearly showed Taejun handling everything. Taejun smiled happily, recalling memories of their last gathering as friends. Just then, Hunter Seo entered the room, asking if Taejun was awake. The three of them were surprised by her presence, and Taejun asked why she had come. Seo confidently told him that she owned the entire hospital and managed it, so the moment he collapsed, he was immediately brought to their guild's hospital. She reassured him, saying he could rest here without worry, and that she owed him a debt for all he had done. Surprised, Taejun asked Seo about the debt she owed him. She explained that she was grateful for him saving the guild's sweetheart, Hunter Siren. Taejun laughed sarcastically, asking what she meant by the guild's sweetheart. Seo replied that she had feared she might never see Siren's lovely face again, and the mere thought of that possibility broke her heart. Leaning in confidently, she told him that he could ask anything of her, and she would fulfill any request he made. Taejun told Seo that nothing came to mind at the moment, prompting her to laugh as she assured him there was no rush. She encouraged him to take his time and left the room, mentioning she'd always be on the top floor, and he could visit her to make a request once he was fully recovered. Suna, feeling proud of him, asked when he had grown to become such a remarkable hunter, reminiscing about how he used to be the lost young hunter who didn't even know how to fight a monster. Now, he had become someone they could all be proud of. Taejun, embarrassed, asked her to stop, while Choi watched with a hint of jealousy over the attention Taejun was receiving from Suna. With excitement, Suna asked Taejun if he had thought about what he might request from Seo. Taejun replied that he hadn't decided yet, noting that since they were talking about Seo Yunhua, the vice guild leader and one of the best magical hunters, it might be wise to request a magical item or something related to magic. As he began to contemplate which magical item he could ask for, Suna reminded him to focus on his recovery first and worry about his request later. She handed him a juice and encouraged him to rest well, then took Choi's hand, mentioning that they had plans and would visit him again later. Taejun bid them farewell, reminding them to stay safe on their way. After they left, Miri appeared, commenting on how Taejun had a lot to think about, adding that having a powerful and beautiful woman like Seo offer him a favor was unbelievable. Annoyed, Taejun told her to stop the nonsense, then began considering what he should ask from Seo. At first, he thought of money, but quickly dismissed the idea, realizing that asking an S-class hunter for money seemed trivial and foolish. He felt he should request something invaluable and started pondering what he truly needed. At that moment, Miri asked about the items he had acquired previously, informing him that they were automatically saved in his green store. Taejun, puzzled, inquired about this green store. Miri laughed mischievously, saying she had been waiting for him to ask. She explained that the green store was a massive platform for trading second-hand goods, boasting around 100 million users from different dimensions and places. This meant he could find a wide range of items at reasonable prices, and if he joined now, he would receive VVIP membership perks, including completely secure transfers with no fees. Taejun sarcastically asked if they were paying her for this advertisement. Still, the thought of people from other dimensions using the same store lingered in his mind. According to Miri, he was the only person on Earth with access to the latest system interface, allowing him to buy artifacts from other dimensions and sell Earth-based products in the green store, effectively granting him a unique monopoly on this interdimensional market. Taejun felt that luck was finally on his side and that wealth would soon flow endlessly into his hands. Filled with excitement, he declared that he would register immediately and call the server to collect all those valuable items. He pressed the call option, and as the server loaded, anticipation swelled within him until he finally connected. Suddenly, he found himself in a strange place filled with merchants from every corner, promoting their diverse wares. Disappointed, he remarked that the place resembled free mobile games. Mary replied, advising that knowing what he knows is better than venturing into the unknown, and suggested that, since they were already there, they should take a tour. Taejun and Mary approached a merchant and asked about the prices. The merchant happily presented him with a shield, inviting him to inspect it freely. A system window appeared, showing that the shield was of B grade, crafted from dragon scales and infused with dragon essence, giving it a very high defensive capability. It cost 18,000 green coins, which surprised Taejun. He asked Mary about the value of this amount. Mary admitted she had forgotten to explain the currency system and clarified that the 18,000 coins equaled roughly 240,000 magic stones, which was more than 1,000,000,000 won, explaining that this was the average price range in the shop. Disappointed, Taejun told her that the prices there exceeded his purchasing power. At that moment, he recalled the items he had obtained from the lich and wanted to know their value if sold here. He retrieved the lich's staff from storage and asked the armor merchant about its worth. The merchant examined it briefly before returning it, explaining that it was unusable due to a strong curse surrounding it, and that unless the user was a powerful enough mage to lift the curse, it couldn't be sold. Shocked by the notion of a curse, Taejun realized it was indeed unusable. He took out the other item he had obtained and asked the merchant about its value, only to be told that it might be worth at most 10 green coins, which dealt him another blow due to the low price. Leaving the place disheartened, Taejun told Mary that he had expected to become a millionaire upon entering this market. Mary tried to console him, saying that every great achievement starts small, and with time, he would be able to make substantial profits, urging him to stay optimistic. As they talked, a stranger approached and asked if Taejun was interested in selling the crystal item he was holding, requesting a closer look at it. A system window appeared, indicating that the starry demon lord had requested a trade and asking if Taejun wished to accept or decline. Taejun moved closer, saying the item was merely junk. The demon lord laughed, stating he didn't mind, and urged him to accept the request. As he examined the crystal, he told Taejun that it could become significantly valuable if enhanced, offering to cover the enhancement costs. Taejun happily thanked him, expressing deep gratitude, but the demon lord clarified that he had one condition. If Taejun failed a single enhancement, he would be responsible for covering all enhancement costs. Taejun was taken aback by this condition, noticing the shift in the demon lord's tone as he reassuringly stated, in a devilish manner, that everything would be free if Taejun succeeded. Mary leaned in close to Taejun, whispering that this person seemed like a complete scammer, and advised him to ignore him. Taejun agreed, recognizing that this person was preying on newcomers to the market, deceiving them into believing their items could be upgraded into priceless tools. Of course, nothing happens to the items, and new players end up paying the full enhancement costs. Only the naive fall for such a scam. However, an idea strikes Taejun, and he asks the demon if he can stop the enhancement process anytime he wishes. The demon confirms that he can halt it at any moment. Smiling triumphantly, Taejun requests to start the enhancement immediately. Mary tries to stop him, asking what he's doing and warning that he'll lose all his money before he even begins. Taejun reassures her, saying there's no need to worry. He has a solid plan to win. Mary wonders about this plan, and he responds that he has a strategy, encouraging her to just watch. His tone turns dark, assuring her that he'll show her how he'll break the luck-based rules of the game. The game's rules are simple. Taejun can continue enhancing until he decides to stop, and if he succeeds in completing all enhancements, the starry demon lord covers the costs. However, if he fails even once, Taejun will bear all costs, no matter how high. The higher the success rate, the greater the risk of loss. The demon smirks, telling Taejun he now has 100 green coins and all the resources for enhancement ready to begin. He asks if Taejun needs help choosing the right spot for enhancement, to which Taejun responds that he doesn't need any specific place for the first attempt, starting the process simply and without hesitation. The crystal item begins to enhance, and the first attempt succeeds, upgrading it to an E-grade crystal, granting its holder an extra strength point. The demon comments that Taejun was lucky, as the first enhancement has an 80% success rate, praising him and asking if he's satisfied with this or will continue. Taejun laughs slyly, saying in a sinister tone that he will perform 9 consecutive enhancements in one go, challenging the demon to back out if he's afraid. The demon feels slightly anxious, but asks Taejun if he's sure about pursuing 9 consecutive enhancements. Taejun provokes him, questioning if he's scared to the point of not wanting to start. The demon thinks to himself that Taejun is foolish, not realizing that the chance of success for 9 consecutive enhancements is less than 0.001%. The demon retorts, warning Taejun not to boast too much to avoid looking bad if he loses, then accepts the challenge. Taejun eagerly begins the enhancement process. Mary, shocked, questions his actions, while the demon laughs darkly, claiming Taejun has fallen into the trap and now all enhancement costs are on him. But before he can finish, Taejun smugly informs him of his success. The crystal reaches A grade, increasing all the holder's stats by 10%. The demon is stunned, beginning to panic, wondering how Taejun succeeded in 9 consecutive enhancements without a single failure. He questions if Taejun is some kind of game master and thinks he can't let him get away, believing he must push him to try another enhancement. He approaches Taejun, congratulating him on his success and mentioning that he's only 1 enhancement away from reaching the maximum level, encouraging him not to give up now. Taejun seriously considers it, realizing that, thanks to his unique, extraordinary growth skill, he achieved a 100% success rate for 9 attempts. However, the chance of reaching the final enhancement level, even with his skill, is no more than 10%. If he risks everything now and fails, he'd be forced to sell even his clothes to pay off the enhancement costs. He feels satisfied with his current stats and upgrades, but his curiosity gnaws at him, wondering about the immense power he might gain. Unable to resist, he tells the demon he agrees, but they must set one condition first. The demon, intrigued, asks about the nature of this condition. Taejun replies that he wants to go to the most suitable location the demon mentioned earlier. The most suitable location was a high cliff overlooking the ocean, where gamblers gathered to test their luck. Standing there, Taejun felt the refreshing breeze, remarking that he could sense the misery and suffering of everyone who had lost their items in this place. Mary asked if enhancing items here would increase his chances of success, to which Taejun responded that there was no such effect at all. Frustrated, she asked why they had come to this place, and he calmly explained that luck has a certain flow, noting that if there's even a 10% or 1% chance, success is still possible. The challenge lies in determining the perfect moment when the flow of luck is on their side. If they can pinpoint that timing, they can overcome any unfavorable odds. Mary admitted his words seemed somewhat convincing, but still questioned the purpose of their visit. Taejun replied in a calm tone, "Can't you hear them? The cries of all these items here give me a strong sense of when to start enhancing and when to stop." Feeling that luck was currently on his side, he excitedly pressed the enhancement option, announcing this as his final decisive attempt. The enhancement process began under everyone's watchful eyes, with the demon observing him, convinced that Taejun was just a fool who had fallen into his trap, believing he had no chance of success, as the probability of 10 consecutive successful enhancements was virtually 0. Everyone waited in suspense, their voices low and tense, until Taejun broke the silence with a victorious shout, announcing his success. A notification appeared, stating that the crystal had become a rare gem, amplifying all stats more than tenfold. The crowd was astonished, murmuring in amazement at Taejun's achievement. It was the first time they had seen an item enhanced to such a powerful level. However, the demon refused to believe what had happened, erupting in anger and accusing Taejun of cheating, claiming it was impossible to achieve such results without illegal programs. Taejun taunted him with a sarcastic smile, questioning who the real fraud was, pointing out that the demon had tried to lure new members into the shop by pretending to help them, posing as some kind of angel. Furious, the demon threatened to report Taejun for cheating, declaring he would never allow him into the market or shop again. But just as he tried to act on his threat, he received a notification that the user had blocked him. Taejun left the market with a smile, bidding the demon farewell. "Goodbye, fool!" the demon screamed, demanding his money back, but Taejun had already returned to his world, lying in his hospital bed, feeling delighted. He remarked that he was incredibly lucky to obtain an enhanced item item without spending a dime. Mary told him he had taken quite a risk, asking what he would have done if he had lost and how he would have repaid the debts. Taejun replied that if he had lost, he would have simply run away, confident that no one could catch him. He laughed devilishly, saying that he was the one who controlled the game according to his whims. He took out the Lich's staff from his storage, commenting that he had also gained valuable information from the market and might eventually find a way to use this item. Meanwhile, at the Sky Guild Hospital, in Vice President Seo's office, a knock on the door interrupted her. She allowed the visitor in, and Taejun entered, greeting her politely. Seo asked if he was feeling better now. He replied that he hadn't fully recovered, but at least he was able to move and walk. Seo laughed, noting that his presence now indicated he had made his decision about his request. She thought to herself that Taejun had been the undisputed top-ranked hunter in the recent evaluation, and if her intuition was right, he would continue to grow and develop, eventually becoming the #1 hunter among all hunters in Korea. Taejun approached Seo's office and told her that what he needed was her ability. As they walked through the guild building, Seo asked him what he intended to do with her power, and if it was customary for him to speak this way with his superiors. Taejun responded by asking if he had said anything wrong, to which Seo told him not to worry, and that perhaps she was the one with the issue. She then laughed awkwardly, leaving Taejun wondering what he might have said that could cause a misunderstanding or a problem. They took the elevator down to the 3rd basement level, where a special room awaited them. Seo asked if his request was really just to lift a curse, noting that it was simpler than she expected, and requested that he hand her the item. He handed her the staff, explaining it was the same one he mentioned during the B-rank evaluation test. Seo confirmed it indeed was. She began using her magical abilities, saying she would identify the types of curses on it and that it wouldn't take long. Seo displayed her magical prowess, astonishing Taejun and Mary, who were witnessing the spell removal technique for the first time. This skill analyzed and nullified the structure and formula of the targeted spell. Since a curse was a complex type of enchantment, no matter how powerful, it became ineffective before this skill. Taejun used his S-grade enhanced crystal, part of Seo's ability, which allowed her to replicate skills through comprehensive scanning and store them for user access. Taejun felt thrilled as his plan was proceeding successfully. He didn't just want to lift the curse from the staff, but also aimed to acquire Seo's skill. He positioned the crystal carefully to copy the skill with precision. As Seo focused on lifting the curse, a sudden disturbance occurred, and a monster emerged from the staff, attempting to attack her. Taejun was shocked to see the creature injure Seo, and he rushed to her side with concern, asking about the creature's origin. Taejun lunged at the monster with a powerful kick, eager to copy the skill without further interruptions, but he was surprised to find that physical attacks had no effect on the entity. He then used 20% of the flaming orb's power, launching it at the creature, which made it retreat slightly. Taejun asked Seo if she was all right or if her injury was severe. She assured him it wasn't fatal, admitting she made a mistake by lowering her defenses as she hadn't anticipated such an event. Taejun inquired about the nature of this creature and where it had suddenly come from, to which Seo responded that it wasn't a monster. Puzzled, Taejun asked how that could be. Seo explained that, while her statement might sound illogical, what they were facing was the curse itself, manifested as a creature. Taejun asked if what was attached to the staff was indeed a cursed spirit rather than just a curse, and Seo confirmed that the curse was deeper than she had anticipated. The only way to dispel it without damaging the staff was through a banishment spell. The problem, however, was that Seo had been afflicted with a weakening skill when the spirit attacked her, rendering her unable to perform the banishment spell in her current state. She told Taejun that their only option now was to force the spirit to leave on its own. Apologetically, she admitted she felt embarrassed for not being able to fulfill his request this time, but promised to do so next time. Taejun was taken aback, as this wasn't what he wanted. In this state, the curse wouldn't be lifted, nor would he be able to copy the skill. He began to worry and tried to think of a solution to prevent this scenario from unfolding. Taejun shouted, asking Seo if she had the ability to channel energy. She replied that she did and asked why he needed it. Taejun requested her to lend him the banishment spell temporarily, stating that he would handle the situation himself. Seo responded that the cursed spirit wasn't something he could deal with by merely borrowing power or skill for a short time, as it was a high-level curse requiring complex spell structures and precise calculations. Even for her, banishing the spirit would take a considerable amount of time. Taejun insisted that he was aware of the difficulty, but asked her to trust him a little. Seo looked at him, contemplating his determination, then sighed, saying he seemed adamant about removing the curse no matter what. She began explaining that the banishment spell required high-level calculations and instructed him to focus and listen carefully, notifying her when he was ready, as the duration of the boost wouldn't last long. Seo began channeling energy into Taejun's body, transferring the banishment spell to him. Taejun felt a surge of excitement, receiving a notification that he had gained an enhancement from the S-grade energy infusion skill, allowing him to use the banishment spell. Thrilled, he realized that he could now handle the spell himself if Seo couldn't manage the cursed spirit. He checked the position of the copying crystal and informed Seo that he was ready. Following her guidance, Taejun started using the banishment spell, with Seo supplying him with the necessary energy. Notifications confirmed that the copying crystal had successfully replicated and stored the skill. Another notification appeared, indicating that he could combine the banishment spell with the calculator tool to perform the required calculations automatically. Seo asked if he could now see the mathematical formulas representing the spell's structure and began explaining the design. However, Taejun interrupted, saying he already understood. Seo was surprised and told him that intuition alone wouldn't suffice, as it was a complex matter. Taejun enthusiastically assured her that there was no need to worry, forming the formulas on his arm and launching an attack on the cursed spirit. He declared that he didn't care if it was a cursed spirit or anything else. He was determined to sell this item at any cost. His strike hit the curse, and it began to dissipate. Seo watched in astonishment, unable to believe that the curse was truly fading, impressed by Taejun's ability to comprehend magic that normally required at least 5 years of study, and how he was able to analyze and calculate the spell's structure independently. She admired Taejun's remarkable talent. Notifications appeared for Taejun, indicating that he had successfully banished the curse entirely, finally lifting the curse from Iratus's staff. Taejun turned to Seo and expressed his admiration for her, leaving Seo surprised by his remark. He went on to commend her skill in controlling such a challenging power, explaining that he now understood why S-rank hunters were in a league of their own compared to regular hunters. Seo thought to herself that Taejun had impressed her more than she expected and worried he might feel pressured if he joined the Sky Guild. She told him, somewhat regretfully, that he should go to the Hwarang Guild, as its leader, Matty, had a special offer that might be greatly beneficial to him. At the Hwarang Guild, Matty was training as usual. He asked loudly if Taejun had come to witness the Dragon Fist skill, adding that if that was the case, he had made a wise choice, as this skill was the essence of martial arts. Matty advised him to watch closely, as this was a rare opportunity, then assumed his stance and rushed forward, demonstrating the Dragon Fist skill in a spectacular fashion before Taejun. Matty asked him what he thought of the display and whether he was impressed. Taejun replied that it was as amazing as always, but internally he was planning something else. He had come here intending to copy as many skills as he could from Matty. Taejun heads to the legendary guild to train with the new skills he copied, feeling immense joy at being able to replicate the techniques with original-level precision. He praises the copying crystal, thanking it for granting him high-quality martial arts for free. However, a notification appears, alerting him that the damage output for Dragon Fist will be reduced by 50% due to his current low power level. Frustrated, Taejun mutters that nothing comes free in this country, and wishes he had followed his old mentor's advice to train regularly. Another system notification follows, assigning him an urgent task to practice the Dragon Fist skill until he can fully develop it. Taejun realizes he'll need to practice it over 2,000 times, which could take around 10 continuous hours, and he feels a bit disheartened, wondering why things always have to be this difficult. But after thinking deeply, he compares these challenges to the 7 years of hardship he endured, deciding that this is nothing in comparison. Now determined to push his power to its peak, he resolves to give it his all. Taejun intensifies his energy, summoning training monsters and charging toward them to begin his training camp while Mary cheers him on. At that moment, Suna arrives with some drinks, as usual, telling Taejun she brought him food to keep his energy up during training. She's taken aback when she notices his transformed physique and muscular form, wondering when he developed such a powerful build. Suna reflects on how Taejun's behavior has changed lately. Not long ago, he was the same person she knew, but now he has surpassed all expectations, achieving astonishing results in the B-rank evaluation, drawing the attention of top guild leaders, including the Hwarang Guild's leader and the Sky Guild president. Suna feels as though Taejun is distancing himself from her and others, as if he broke out of a shell, now set to conquer all hunters. Though happy that everyone praises his abilities, she's unsettled by this rapid transformation, feeling as though he's drifting away from her. Suddenly, Guildmaster Cha appears behind her, asking if she seems confused, startling her. Cha smiles and mentions that he heard she borrowed the training room to practice a new sword skill, making her feel embarrassed for not asking his permission first. Cha reassures her, saying he's confident she wouldn't let anyone use the training room without his approval, then notices Taejun and comments that the powerful aura he sensed must have belonged to him. Guildmaster Cha approaches Taejun and greets him, congratulating him on his remarkable success in the B-rank evaluation, noting that it was exactly as he anticipated and that his expectations never fail. Taejun chuckles modestly, thanking Cha for the compliment. Cha steps closer, asking if Taejun is still working as a freelance hunter, and Taejun confirms. Cha then tells him that this arrangement allows him to make an offer. Intrigued, Taejun listens as Cha explains that there's an upcoming exploration mission led by An, but a team member had to withdraw due to an injury. Suna interrupts before Cha can continue, cautioning that this mission might be a challenging one for someone at Taejun's level. Taejun asks about the level of the dungeon they'll be heading to, and Suna explains it's a second-level dungeon, appearing for the first time, so there's insufficient information about it, and they're uncertain about the dangers they might face. She adds that she doesn't want Taejun to be put in harm's way. Taejun listens to her words sympathetically, yet deep down, he feels she is underestimating his abilities. Cha laughed and told Taejun not to worry, assuring him that with his current level, he could easily clear the dungeon. He emphasized that the offer was not obligatory, but merely a suggestion, pointing out that training on real monsters would be far more effective than practicing on the illusionary ones available here. Taejun pondered this, recalling what the system had mentioned. The Dragon Fist would be 10 times stronger against real monsters. He decided to accept Cha's offer, but asked if he would receive all the magic stones earned while working with them as an independent hunter. As Taejun made his way to the dungeon gate, he received a flurry of notifications from team members on his phone, inquiring about his location and whether he would be late. Growing annoyed by the incessant messages, Mary expressed her concern, reminding him that the individual who tampered with the evaluation test had yet to be revealed and asking if he believed it was safe to move freely at such a time. Taejun reassured her, explaining that he would be with members of the legendary guild. Mary pressed him, asking if he could trust them completely. Taejun replied that the leaders of the Hwarang and legendary guilds, Maddie and Cha, had been close friends for 20 years, which ensured a good relationship among the guild members, making it almost impossible for the legendary guild to be responsible for any manipulation. With a confident tone, he added that even if hundreds of people sought to harm him, it wouldn't matter due to the Dragon Fist technique and the banishment spell he had just copied. Mary cautioned him that he might be overestimating his confidence, but he insisted that it was the truth, not just bravado. She warned him to keep his defenses up at all times. At the dungeon gate, Taejin found heavy security in place, and Suna called him over to meet her team members. Taejin recognized Yoonshik and Ayong from the third team, as well as No, the youngest member of the group. He informed them that they could enter now that everyone was present, but Suna reminded him that there was still one person who hadn't arrived yet. Taejin inquired about this individual, and Suna explained that one of the team members had sustained an injury the day before, so they had enlisted another hunter. Just as she finished speaking, a loud vehicle approached from behind, and the driver yelled for Taejin to clear the way. Taejin turned to see who it was. A large, muscular man with a gang-like demeanor stepped out of the vehicle and began to insult Taejin, saying, "Who's the deaf one just standing there not listening?" Taejin was taken aback by the man's appearance, and Suna informed him that this was the hunter who would complete the team. Taejin approached the man with a smile to introduce himself, but the hunter shot him a murderous glance and completely ignored him, turning to the rest of the team and asking why they were wasting time waiting around. Suna stepped closer to Taejin, calming him down and explaining that this man had poor manners but a strong reputation in the hunting world. Taejin angrily asked about this person, and Suna replied that he was Kim Ji-haeon, an A-rank hunter known for his rude demeanor and bad attitude, though he possessed exceptional skills even among advanced hunters. She pointed out that the issue with him was that he exploited his status to claim all the magic stones for himself, leaving the rest of the team with no rewards, not even to fund treatment. She added that she preferred not to work with him for this reason. Taejin reflected on how this situation reminded him of the reasons behind his own past behavior, and that sometimes one meets people similar to them in life. He marveled at how he had never encountered someone like Ji-haeon before, and he resolved to put him in his place. As they entered the dungeon, they immediately faced a monster. Suna reminded them to stay calm and focused, maintaining formation and moving forward slowly as these creatures behaved aggressively. Ji-haeon decided to ignore Suna's instructions, advancing to attack the monsters on his own, commenting that he didn't have time to waste on low-level creatures. He quickly defeated them and remarked that his strength hadn't diminished with time. Suna reprimanded him for acting alone and disregarding coordination, emphasizing that they were there as a team to clear the dungeon together. She explained that his disregard for her instructions endangered not only his life, but the entire team's. Ji-haeon replied rudely, claiming her overcautious approach as team leader rendered her ineffective and blaming leaders like her for the team's weak performance. He approached her, stating that only talented hunters earned fame and fortune. Walking away, he added that he couldn't believe hunters of her caliber led teams and that the world was headed for ruin. Taejin was angered by Ji-haeon's attitude and looked forward to the moment he could confront him personally. The team reached an enormous castle where Duke Duaz greeted them, introducing himself as the master of the cursed land. Suna politely thanked him for the welcome and inquired about the purpose of their summons, but Ji-haeon interrupted, asking the Duke to get straight to the point. Duke Duaz explained that he hadn't planned to keep them there for long and began describing the history of the land. He revealed that it had been sealed for ages to contain a great cursed evil, making it unsuitable for human habitation. He added that his ancestors had discovered an artifact that allowed them to suppress the cursed energy and purify the land, but someone had stolen it. Taejin confirmed that the artifact had been stolen, and Duke Duaz acknowledged this, explaining that the only way to restore the land was to retrieve the artifact, making it livable once again. He further explained that the thieves had broken the artifact into parts and distributed them across various locations, which was all he could share for now. Ji-haeon laughed dismissively, remarking that the mission sounded like a mere treasure hunt for a cursed item, much easier than he had expected. No commented that the task seemed simple for a second-level dungeon, doubting they would encounter a dungeon monster on a search mission. Ayong clarified that the creatures guarding such artifacts were usually stronger than regular monsters. Suna, thinking aloud, speculated that there were likely 4 artifact pieces, possibly distributed in the 4 directions: north, south, east, and west. Ji-haeon scoffed, saying it wasn't necessary to overthink and suggested splitting into pairs to search each direction. Suna countered that safety required them to to stay unified, but Taejin interrupted, sarcastically agreeing with Jihaeon's suggestion. With a sinister tone, he added that he'd love to team up with Jihaeon if everyone agreed. The team consented to the plan, and Suna clarified that whichever team found a piece should head south to regroup and purify the area together. Taejin told Jihaeon cheerfully that he was happy to work with him and looked forward to finding the artifact together. Jihaeon, irritated, told him to avoid speaking to him throughout the mission. Taejin continued teasing, saying he was inspired by Jihaeon's earlier remarks to Suna about competent hunters who achieved fame and fortune and aspired to follow in the footsteps of a great hunter like him. Jihaeon, flattered, praised Taejin's attitude and asked his name again. Thus, the two became better acquainted during their journey, with Jihaeon promising to teach him as long as he stayed by his side. They arrived at a site filled with graves, and Taejin commented dryly that it didn't seem like a suspicious place at all. He asked Jihaeon if he thought this was a good spot to search for the artifact. Jihaeon laughed, telling Taejin that he sensed many monsters lurking in this place, trying their best to keep the artifact safe, and added that he'd eliminate them all if they appeared. Taejin politely asked if he could make a small request, to which Jihaeon responded arrogantly, asking what he wanted. Taejin, as a beginner hunter, requested permission to handle a small area on his own, as he feared he might get in Jihaeon's way. Jihaeon laughed smugly and agreed, saying he'd let Taejin train in that area as he pleased. Taejin thanked him warmly, promising to do his best. Jihaeon began to feel frustrated as no monsters appeared, wondering why they weren't coming out to face him. Meanwhile, Taejin found a monster, swiftly defeated it, and obtained a high-grade magic stone. Jihaeon chuckled at Taejin's luck, but quickly grew irritated, feeling left out as he had yet to claim his spoils. He wondered aloud why no monsters had appeared before him. Just then, Taejin called out, saying he'd found 3 more monsters and had taken care of them, assuring Jihaeon that everything was under control. Jihaeon grew increasingly annoyed, questioning why the monsters only seemed to appear near Taejin and wondering if Taejin somehow knew their positions in advance. In fact, Taejin was using the green navigation system to locate the monsters. However, Jihaeon dismissed the idea, assuming that Taejin, as a beginner, wouldn't have the experience to pinpoint monster locations so precisely. Taking a deep breath, Jihaeon decided to use a wide-range monster attraction skill and shouted loudly, demanding the monsters come out of hiding. Taejin was surprised to witness the wide attraction skill he'd been curious about before entering the dungeon. Suna explained that, as a fighter, Jihaeon didn't possess many unique skills, except this large-scale attraction ability. Suna was puzzled by Taejin's sudden interest in Jihaeon, and Taejin told her that it was a useful skill he could make good use of. During the battle, Taejin was pleased to see Jihaeon using his skill, but Jihaeon had underestimated the sheer number of monsters drawn to them by this ability, leaving him with little chance to fend them all off. Taking advantage of the situation, Taejin began hunting the monsters and collecting magic stones, as the number of incoming creatures steadily increased. Jihaeon, overwhelmed by the density and strength of the monsters, called out to Taejin, asking him to stop watching and help. Taejin responded that he preferred to stay in his designated area and didn't want to interfere, adding sarcastically that he didn't want to intrude. Jihaeon's anger flared, and he yelled at Taejin to stop messing around and come help him immediately. Taejin laughed mischievously, agreeing to help, but on the condition that Jihaeon wouldn't complain if he ended up defeating all the monsters himself. Taejin dashed toward the monsters, using the Dragon Fist skill he had copied from Maddie. Jihaeon watched in shock, having never expected Taejin, a mere B-rank hunter, to be this powerful. Before long, Taejin had eliminated the monsters, wiping sweat from his brow and commenting happily about the abundance of monsters that allowed him to collect a large number of magic stones. With a sly smile, Taejin told Jihaeon he owed him thanks for the help and promised to remain loyal to him. Jihaeon, trying to keep his composure, replied that since they had obtained the artifact, they could leave now, as there wouldn't be any additional rewards here. But Taejin countered, suggesting they help the rest of the team and gather more magic stones. He approached Jihaeon with a commanding tone, instructing him to use the attraction skill from now on. The scene shifts to Sona, who thanks Taejin and tells him that without his help, she wouldn't have been able to find the artifact. Taejin responds that there's no need for thanks, as they are all here to help one another. Taejun receives a notification indicating the successful completion of an urgent mission, thus making his ability, Dragon's Fist, fully usable at 100% of its power instead of just 20%. Noah remarks that Taejun has already hunted many monsters and has gathered so many magical stones that it's difficult even to count them. Taejun looks at the stones and says that they are indeed too many, even for him. He then happily suggests dividing all the stones among the 3 teams. Everyone is surprised by Taejun's offer and doesn't understand the reason behind his decision. Sona hesitantly asks if he is in his right mind or if something strange is affecting him. Yoonshik tells him he might be overdoing it with his generosity. Taejun replies cheerfully that everyone here has worked hard and that he personally has received more than his share of these stones. He looks at Ji-hoon and jokes, saying it's all thanks to Hunter Ji-hoon who helped him collect all these magical stones. Taejun adds enthusiastically that Ji-hoon was the one who taught him this approach and that he will follow in Ji-hoon's footsteps, sharing the stones equally among the 3 teams. He then approaches Ji-hoon and sarcastically asks how he feels about it, telling him that he must be as happy as Taejun is because they divided the stones. But Ji-hoon is unable to respond, though he wants to object and is clearly unhappy with what happened. The other hunters join in, supporting Taejun's stance, and they tell Ji-hoon that they were surprised by his generosity and noble character, and they are impressed by what he did with Taejun, helping and guiding him. They thank both Taejun and Ji-hoon warmly and start taking the stones, happily placing them in their storage. However, Ji-hoon feels anger and doesn't know how long he can tolerate this, knowing it's impossible to obtain such a large number of stones again. Meanwhile, Sona, in a parallel world, admires what Taejun has done and sees it as a kind act. But this behavior doesn't fool Miri, who asks Taejun if he's really going to leave them the stones like that. Miri replies that all of this is just for appearances in front of the others. After that, the team returns to the castle again and informs the Duke that they have found the lost artifacts. The Duke tells them he cannot express his gratitude enough and that thanks to them, this barren, dead land will turn green again. Sona asks him where the artifacts should be placed. The Duke replies that they should hand them over to him as the landowner, who has the right to put them in their designated places. Sona thinks about the Duke's words and feels uneasy. She tells him in a serious tone that she has a question she wants to ask him, and the Duke tells her to go ahead and ask. Sona tells him that when he assigned them this mission initially, he said that the landowner couldn't prevent the invading barbarians from stealing the artifacts, and as a result, the sealed monsters killed everyone, both residents and invaders. The Duke responds that this is exactly what happened. Sona then asks in a skeptical tone how he managed to survive that incident. The Duke ponders and his expression changes. He then chuckles lightly and tells Sona that she's smart and that most people who come here don't notice or focus on this matter, leaving Sona and the team surprised, not understanding what the Duke means. But the Duke continued, telling them that it is too late, as he has been regaining his energy every second that the artifacts were here in the palace. The aura surrounding the Duke starts to change, and his back becomes stronger and more rigid, revealing that he is an A-rank vampire. Sona says that she had felt from the beginning that something was not right, and that it was unnatural for a dungeon like this not to have a leader. She knew that finding the artifacts wouldn't cleanse the dungeon. She tells them that this was a double mission, and that upon facing the leader, another mission would emerge. Taejun understands that this is what is meant by the double mission, and that this decrepit old Duke is the dungeon leader. The Duke commands them in an authoritative tone to hand over the artifacts they found and contribute to reviving the great king. Sona falls under his hypnotic influence. Taejun tries to stop her, but the other hunters attack him. Taejun is bewildered by their sudden and strange behavior and tries to fend off the attacks without hurting them, until he notices that they are under the influence of a mind control skill, which can only be used by noble vampires. Taejun wonders about the existence of such a magical skill, but fortunately, due to the magic crystal, he did not fall into the Duke's trap and wasn't controlled like the others. The Duke calls out to Taejun and asks how he wasn't under his control. Taejun responds angrily that it's impossible for him to fall for such a cheap trick, and that such methods are outdated. The Duke is provoked by Taejun's words and feels that he is arrogant and thinks too highly of himself for no reason. The Duke takes the artifacts and tells Taejun that his words don't don't matter now, because all the artifacts have already been placed in their proper locations, and he will gain the great power of immortality. The Duke screams and calls upon the hunters under his spell, addressing them as his slaves and ordering them to kill Taejin. Taejin prepares for battle and tells Miri that it seems he's in big trouble now. Miri asks what she can do to help him. The Duke laughs loudly and tells Taejin that no matter what he does or how strong he is, he's just a mortal human, and that he cannot take his eyes off witnessing his tragic death at the hands of his closest friends. Taejin uses a small portion of his strength to strike them, just to push the hunters away without causing them serious injuries. The Duke is stunned by Taejin's unexpected strength. Taejin notices that Ji-hoon is still standing and hasn't fallen under control like the others. He says to him that he's still angry at him and lands a powerful punch that makes Ji-hoon see stars in broad daylight. After freeing himself from the hunters, Taejin goes to the Duke and tells him that he's underestimating him too much. His tone becomes more intense, and he says that physical arts can sometimes be so powerful that it's hard to distinguish them from magic. The Duke stands up from his chair and replies to Taejin, saying that he is indeed strong, but he still has much more to show. He screams and orders Sona to eliminate Taejin and protect him until he fully regains his strength. Sona draws her sword and attacks Taejin with a dangerous move, wounding him in the abdomen, and Taejin realizes that the Duke's technique is extremely precise. Sona is powerful and fast, her movement so instantaneous that Taejin is certain it's impossible to keep up with her. He considers using the dragon's fist, but this skill could mortally harm her, especially since her power has increased. Therefore, Taejin tries to evade Sona as much as possible. The Duke laughs maliciously and tells Taejin that his end is near, and that his demise will be at the hands of the person he values and respects the most. He laughs, looking at Taejin with malice and hatred, telling him that this is a great tragedy. Taejin looks at him in bewilderment and questions this talk, which seems as clear-cut as black and white. But Miri draws Taejin's attention to Sona, whose swift movements have suddenly stopped. Taejin notices this and doesn't understand if it's due to the weakening of the magic's effect or something else. The Duke screams at Sona, asking her what she's doing, and commands her to kill him immediately. Taejin remembers the Duke's words about Sona being the person he values and respects the most, and since that moment, Sona's movements have stopped, possibly as a reaction to hearing the Duke's words. Taejin gets an idea. When emotions are strong, they might weaken the effect of the Duke's mind control magic, so he decides to try something since he has no other option. Taejin calls out loudly to Sona, telling her that he knows what he's about to say may sound strange in this situation, but there's something he's been thinking about for a long time, which is about last Christmas, when she gave him a wallet as a gift. He remembers her telling him that a man should carry an elegant wallet to attract wealth, and he admits that he had to sell that wallet on an online store. Even though he really didn't want to sell it, but life circumstances were very difficult. He now feels relieved because he confessed this to her. Sona remains stunned and silent, showing signs of disappointment and anger. Taejin is thrilled when he notices that he managed to irritate Sona slightly, weakening the magic's effect, and now she won't move for a while. He seizes the opportunity and rushes toward the Duke at full speed, shouting at him, asking how a mosquito like him dares to play with his friends this way. Taejin charges toward him, ready to deliver a decisive blow, telling him that he won't allow him to use this skill on himself or anyone else ever again. He uses his technique to gouge out the vampire Duke's eye without mercy. The Duke screams in pain, demanding that Taejin remove his fingers from his eye immediately. Taejin taunts him, asking if he can still see or not, telling him they will stay in this position until he dies. Notifications appear for Taejin that he is obtaining the Magic Eye spell and that the new skill is loading. But suddenly, the loading stops, and the system informs him that the Magic Eye skill has been cancelled, because the Duke moved away from Taejin before the skill could be fully absorbed. The Duke is in pain and unable to see clearly, and Taejin provocatively asks him how it feels, but the Duke doesn't fully understand what Taejin did to his eye. As his vision starts to improve slightly, he is shocked to find that the situation has completely changed, and it seems that the other hunters are regaining their consciousness. Yoonshik asks him what happened, and Ah-yoon says she feels a headache as if someone hit her on the head with a stick. Taejin notices that they are starting to regain control over their bodies and break free from the vampire's influence. The Duke's anger flares, and he shouts furiously, asking Taejin what he did, saying that throughout his long life he has never unleashed Lord Jim's power powers, and even if a small part of it was released, it only happened when the Duke's powers weren't enough. The Duke is enraged and asks Taejun how someone like him could release Lord Jim's powers. Taejun responds coldly, asking what he would do if he knew, as one way or another, he'll die soon. He further provokes him, telling him to look it up on Google, though if he dies, he won't be able to search for it. The Duke becomes livid, reaching the peak of his fury, and tells Taejun he will regret his continued mockery and insults. He begins to summon his weapon, telling Taejun that he wants to see how long he will keep laughing with his mouth open like that, and that the one who will die today is Taejun, not him. He charges to attack him, shouting that he will kill Taejun out of laughter. Taejun prepares to mock him again, but suddenly, Sona rushes in from behind in the blink of an eye and delivers a direct blow to the vampire. Taejun is surprised but feels happy and asks Sona if she has regained her senses. Sona responds seriously that he has done his best up until now, and her tone shifts to become frightening and firm, telling him that from now on, he should leave the rest to them. She looks at the others and tells them that this is a great opportunity and that the Duke won't be able to use his mind control skill again, and now they must gather their strength to defeat the cursed vampire. The Duke becomes enraged and attacks Sona, telling her how dare a mere mortal lay a hand on her masters. Taejun laughs at him because he finds his words ridiculous, especially in his current situation where they outnumber him. He tells him to prepare for a brutal beating from the most mortal creatures in the galaxy. Noah charges from behind Taejun, shouting enthusiastically that he has been waiting for this moment for a long time, and starts continuously firing at the Duke, along with Ah-Yun and Yoon-shik. They continue attacking the Duke, telling Taejun to leave him to them and that they will handle him. The Duke continues to receive relentless strikes from the hunters without mercy, but he notices that their attacks are strongly coordinated, as if this isn't the first or second time they've fought together. Sona starts using her special technique and delivers a violent, fatal blow, slicing the Duke in half while he stands in place in the blink of an eye. Noah asks if they're done with him now, and Taejun says he wants the honor of delivering the final blow. Taejun uses the blazing orb technique and obliterates any trace of the Duke, telling them that this vampire was a cautious one who never let down his defenses until the very last moment, so they must make sure he's truly dead. The Duke turns into a roasted potato, and Sona says she has indeed gotten herself into a big mess, noting that she sensed something strange about the Duke, but never imagined he would use a mind control technique from the start like that. Noah tells her he didn't feel anything at all until he regained his consciousness and saw Taejun gouging out the vampire's eye. Noah praises Taejun, telling him he was really impressive and not to be underestimated, especially since he managed to escape the influence of such a powerful skill. Taejun shyly replies that he didn't do anything deserving of such praise, and looks towards Sona, asking them if they truly don't remember anything that happened while under the Duke's control. Sona responds that it's true and asks why he's asking. Taejun laughs theatrically and says it's nothing, but he feels relieved that they don't remember, otherwise he would have gotten a severe beating from Sona because of the wallet. The exit gate finally starts to appear, and Yoon-shik says that since the gate has opened, they should get out of this cursed place. Ah-Yun agrees, as she feels hungry and wants to leave to eat. Noah tells them all right then. He also wants to leave, but Sona wonders about Ji-hoon's absence for a long time. She searches for him until she finds him collapsed and unconscious due to Taejun's powerful punch. The team members are shocked by Ji-hoon's deteriorating condition, and Sona asks Taejun to explain what happened. Taejun feigns ignorance and tells her that he doesn't know anything. They carry Ji-hoon and support him, and Sona tells them that his injury isn't serious, and it won't take long for him to recover and be fine again. Noah suggests they hurry now so they can have a good dinner together as a team, and Ah-Yun tells Taejun that he should join them, that it was a happy coincidence to work together. Taejun apologizes, telling her that he has a lot of work to finish. Sona looks at him suspiciously and asks what work he's talking about, as he has no plans or commitments other than them right now. Taejun laughs awkwardly and tells her that's how it is now. What can he do? He says seriously that he wants to explore the dungeon in depth because he doesn't know when he will get the chance to see a dungeon like this again, and that this is also a kind of important training. The team members tell him that his thinking is mature and impressive. Sona sighs, saying she won't be able to stop him, as once he sets his mind on something, he will certainly do it. She goes to Taejun and tells him that his habit of exploring dungeons is still the same, and she respects his passion for it. it, both now and before. She wipes the dust off his face and tells him she wants him to keep one thing in mind, which is not to push himself too hard no matter what happens. Taejin is stunned by the strange change in her tone and tells her he will try. Sona and the team start walking, and she asks Taejin to contact her when he's done, as they will be staying up late anyway, and Noah tells him to take care of himself. Taejin bids them farewell, asking them to take care of each other, and Miri asks him what else is left for him to do here. She tells Taejin that there's no such thing as studying or exploring dungeons in the first place. Taejin looks at her and tells her that she understands him well, and tells her that earlier he was struggling just to survive. But now there's something different, as the green navigation system revealed something to him. He shows her the coordinates that appeared to him, saying that anyone who sees this figure would surely know there is hidden treasure there, and that he can't wait, that his curiosity is killing him, so he decides to go check it out. Miri asks him if he really studied dungeons in the past, or if he's just talking uselessly as usual. Taejin replies that he wasn't of much use back then, but he was diligent and passionate. They reach a large library, and Taejin follows the navigation coordinates. Taejin and Miri search for any clue or anything strange, and Miri says there is nothing noteworthy here. Taejin replies that he finds it strange because the navigation system insists that something is here. He finds a book and pulls it, telling Miri that in the movies, when you pull a book like this, a wall usually moves, and indeed, a hidden area opens behind the library. Miri is surprised and asks Taejin what this place is. Taejin replies that he was right and that the treasure is definitely here. Taejin proceeds eagerly, but Miri suddenly calls out to him as the ground beneath him starts to vanish, turning into spikes. Taejin is stunned and says that now he will undoubtedly go. Miri tells him that if he focuses well on the navigation system data, he will find that there are many hidden traps in the area. But the problem is that even if he wants to pinpoint the exact location of this trap in the dungeon, it is very difficult and almost impossible. Taejin thinks for a moment and says that this is indeed a complicated problem, then reaches into his storage and says that there's no better time than now to use it. He pulls out the Lich's staff and decides to use it here. Taejin uses the magic staff to open a portal and calls out for Eratus, ordering him to come forth. Miri is surprised that Taejin is calling for Eratus, despite the fact that they had dealt with him previously. A skeleton starts emerging slowly from the portal, asking who has summoned him into this world. The skeleton rises and yawns, saying that the body of the Seeker of Death, the great Eratus, is at their service. Once he realizes who stands before him, he screams and asks Taejin if he is real or just an illusion. Taejin replies that he is happy to see him again and asks how he is doing. Eratus is surprised and asks Taejin if he used the old staff to summon him again into this world. Taejin responds nonchalantly that his staff was very powerful and useful. Eratus becomes agitated and tells Taejin to stop lying, because there are countless evil spirits in this staff, and if he acts recklessly, those spirits will take over his body. Taejin replies innocently that he killed those spirits using his little toe. Eratus says that's completely impossible, and he thought Taejin would die from the nuisance of all the curses contained in the staff. Taejin approaches him and, in a dangerous tone, tells him that he has allowed him to speak long enough. He strikes Eratus forcefully on the head with the staff, telling him not to speak to his master in such a manner, that he has no idea of the sacrifices he went through to summon him, and warns him that if he speaks to him again without respect, he won't be merciful and will turn him into foot soup. Taejin asks Eratus what changed his tone like that, saying that when he was in the lich form, his voice was grand and commanding. Eratus replies that he doesn't understand what Taejin wants, to which Taejin responds by telling him to be quiet now and focus on what's ahead because he is about to receive his first command. Taejin yells passionately, ordering Eratus to walk ahead and lead the way. Eratus is puzzled and asks if he means this path because he cannot see anything in it. Taejin becomes angry, telling him since when does a servant dare to question his master, and if he doesn't move now, Taejin will be angry, very angry. Hearing those words, Eratus starts running down the booby-trapped corridor at full speed, and suddenly finds himself crushed by another wall, and a notification window appears saying that the summoned skeleton has been dismissed and returned to the other world. Taejin doesn't care and says it's good they found out where the trap was. He summons Eratus again, telling him that they are not done yet. Aratus returns, still not having recovered from the previous time, and walks into another trap and dies. Taejun summons him again and sends him to the next trap, and Aratus dies for the third time, turning to ashes as Taejun discovers the location of yet another trap. Miri is upset by the inhumane method of discovering traps and asks Taejun if he plans to continue like this. Taejun responds in an obsessed tone that, of course, he will continue, and what's wrong with this method, since Aratus himself never acted mercifully when power and authority were in his hands. Miri can't argue with him in this mad state, so she tells him to do whatever he wants. Taejun summons Aratus again, telling him that he hasn't done anything yet and must finish his work now. They continue in this manner until they finally manage to get through the booby-trapped corridor and reach the other side. Taejun tells Aratus that he was a better guide than anyone else. Aratus is surprised that he didn't die this time either, and notifications appear stating that the skeleton's repeated experiences of death have increased his efficiency and endurance. Taejun notices that indeed, in the last few times, Aratus didn't die despite passing through several deadly traps. But regular summons don't grow stronger from repeated death experiences, and he thinks that this may all be due to his explosive growth skill. Taejun says that the more he learns about it, the more he finds it amazing and impressive. Aratus thinks that Taejun is talking about him and feels grateful toward him. But Taejun walks away, and all he can think about is to research that skill of his after he finishes dealing with the dungeon and the treasure. Aratus feels frustrated and vents his anger at Taejun, saying that there isn't even a word of thanks, and that this is really too much, as he has endured a lot, and his body has decayed, and although he is an immortal being, this is considered a violation of the rights of beings. Taejun responds indifferently, and then cancels the summon. Taejun walks with inner peace, and tells Miri to continue their journey as usual. Miri tells him that he is merciless and harsh, saying that they have now bypassed all the traps and there's nothing else left, and it seems the path is now clear before them. She asks Taejun if he suspects anything or sees anything else. Taejun tells her that this tombstone is strange, as normal tombstones aren't of this enormous size. And if there wasn't something hidden here, there would be no need to put something this big and take up all this space. Taejun feels a different texture under his hand, which is placed on the stone, and the stone opens like a coffin or a chest. And inside he finds a red box containing something resembling an old bracelet. Miri is astonished and asks if all of this was for just a bracelet. Taejun answers her that this is not just a bracelet, but it's made of the artifacts they found earlier, and they weren't just ordinary items meant to clear the dungeon. Then looks at Miri and starts flattering her and pleading with her, addressing her with grand titles. Miri stops him and tells him there's no need for all that praise every time, and all he has to do is request the Element Analyzer app, which allows him to analyze the item he wants easily and quickly, and its operation is very simple and easy to use. Taejun becomes angry and asks Miri why she didn't tell him about it earlier. Miri gets angry and asks him who was it that kept singing and talking repeatedly about the new updates in the system and system window. Taejun gets scared of her and says nervously that he was certainly too busy to pay attention to what she was saying. Taejun places the bracelet in the search frame and asks Miri if it will work automatically or if he needs to do something. But after a few seconds, a system window appears, saying that this bracelet is a unique version only, composed of the artifacts that seal the greatest evil, and the notifications add that the skills Vampire's Charm and Vampire's Magic have been added to Taejun's skill set. Taejun is surprised that this is a unique piece, and Miri tells him to look at the new skills he has acquired. One of the skills is Vampire Aesthetics, an A-rank skill that doesn't allow any flaw to exist in the user's beautiful body, whether it's wounds, fractures, or others. The second skill is Vampire Seduction Magic, an A-rank skill that only works on humans incapable of resistance, rendering them unable to resist the user's commands, consuming 50 mana units, but it doesn't affect any opponent whose mental resistance is higher than rank B. Taejun is overjoyed because this automatic element analyzer is brilliant. Miri draws Taejun's attention to the fact that the skill he just acquired is similar to the one the Duke used on them earlier, but it states that it only works on humans incapable of resistance, so she asks Taejun if that makes it practically useful. Taejun looks at her with malice and tells her that it certainly has its uses, as there are many people who need discipline. He adds that the number of people in this world is endless. Miri feels frightened and says in a shaky tone that using such a dangerous technique on people randomly is negligence. Taejun responds to Miri by saying he wants to tell her something about the world. Although he doesn't know much about it, he sees it with his own eyes. He adds that the people in this world might be more terrifying than the monsters in the dungeon. A soldier was observing Taejun and says over the radio that the target has been identified. The other side responds that the target is a hunter recently promoted to rank B, and it shouldn't be difficult for a soldier of his skill to handle him alone. The soldier agrees to the orders. The soldier activates his S-rank skill, which makes him invisible, and moves towards Taejun, who is unaware of his presence. The soldier stands before Taejun, dagger in hand, thinking that this hunter had been in rank D his whole life, was recently promoted to rank B quickly, and managed to achieve the highest scores in the evaluation test. If there is any reason a genius like him might die, it's because too much spotlight was cast on him. The soldier raises the dagger, ready to strike Taejun and make his death quick and smooth. But Taejun raises his foot and kicks him hard before the soldier can stab him. The soldier is shocked and can't comprehend how Taejun noticed him, but Taejun still couldn't see him yet, saying to Miri that there was a loud thud and asking if she heard it too. The soldier is stunned because he didn't realize Taejun had a detection skill. Taejun thinks there might be someone using a concealment skill or something of that sort, and he calls out, telling him to show himself and face him directly. Otherwise, he'll have to beat him until he passes out. Taejun starts delivering heavy blows into the air, but the blows were actually landing on the soldier. He couldn't react or even speak, as Taejun mercilessly pounded him with blows, until the soldier is finally able to speak, revealing himself to Taejun, apologizing, and asking him to show some mercy. Taejun responds, saying that he hasn't even started yet, and the real fun hasn't begun. He looks at him with disdain, saying that people nowadays have become incredibly weak. Taejun then laughs and tells him that since he's revealed himself, he should introduce himself, and asks who he is and where he lives. The soldier anxiously replies that his name is Han Jung-shul from Red Hound. Taejun thinks for a moment about the place, as he has heard of it before. He recalls that it's an institution for hired assassins who kill people for money, and it's certainly a criminal organization. Taejun grabs Han by the collar and asks him what brought criminals here. Han replies that he was merely following orders and asks Taejun for forgiveness. Taejun tells him that forgiveness is impossible since he was just trying to kill him moments ago, and says it's clear he has no sense of appreciation for the situation. Taejun then uses the vampire seduction magic on him, telling him that whether he is from Red Hound or any other group, from now on, he will answer every question posed to him politely and honestly. Meanwhile, in the old Red Hound castle, two Red Hound soldiers stand, wondering why Han is taking so long. One of them, Han's older brother Jung-bil, says he didn't expect Han to take this long to get rid of a single hunter. He decides that in future missions like this, he'll handle them himself and not leave it to anyone else. His brother, Jung So-han, responds by saying that he is always late because he hasn't trained enough in practical missions, and it's only natural that he wouldn't be skilled like him from the first time. Jung-bil says that the more he trains, the more his experience grows day by day until he reaches his current level. Their conversation is interrupted by Taejun arriving, dragging their brother behind him, saying, "Jung-bil, Hong So-han, and Han Jung-sol, the three brothers who awakened their abilities at the same time and spread rumors that they had died." He looks at them with disdain and says, "If your families knew the truth, they would cry tears of blood over the disappointment of their sons." Jung-bil anxiously asks how Taejun found them here and says that this must be why they lost contact with their younger brother. Taejun replies that he didn't know things had escalated to the point where they'd send their youngest brother to kill him. He provokes them, saying that he got all the information he wanted from him anyway. So-han gets angry and prepares to attack, but Jung-bil stops him. He tells him that even though Han is the youngest among them, he trained for many years, and it was impossible for him to be defeated and end up in this state so easily, admitting their location and revealing information about the guild as well. He adds that it must have happened because the enemy used a hypnosis or mind control skill. Taejun mocks them, saying sarcastically, "It's so nice to see brothers supporting and trusting each other like this." The brothers get irritated and provoked, seeing Taejun as a lunatic who came to meet his death. Jung-bil says he should have dealt with him from the beginning, especially since his appearance doesn't suggest he'd have any trouble against him. He prepares his weapon and tells Taejun, "Don't even dream of getting out of here." Taejun provokes him back, asking if he really thinks that's what will happen. Jung-bil replies, saying that he has something special prepared for Taejin, a combat art specifically designed for hired assassins, which he has trained in for many years and will finally have the honor of using. Before Jung-bil can finish his words and attack, Taejin interrupts him with a punch to the face that knocks out his teeth. Taejin tells him that he talks too much for no reason and that his heart is weak from the first strike. He then turns to the second brother, Sohan, and tells him that his mana is depleted. Taejin says in a threatening tone that he should think about whether he wants to end up like his brothers or obey orders and listen. Shortly after, at the Hunter Alliance headquarters, the three brothers and most of the Red Hound assassins are captured. They begin to be interrogated, and it is discovered that from the beginning, they knew the locations of the dungeons Taejin would enter, and they had been preparing and planning to assassinate him. They recount the details of their plan, how Han disguised himself as a janitor and waited for Taejin to exit the dungeon. But unexpectedly, they exited the cave while Taejin stayed inside the dungeon alone. This forced Han to head inside the dungeon immediately to assassinate Taejin. When Seo learns these details, she becomes extremely angry and says that she had been overly complacent and had let her defenses down. Since the evaluation test incident, she knew there was an organization targeting Taejin, and she expected the assassin to move during this period. During the guild meeting, she presented the situation and precautionary measures were taken, but she never imagined that the enemy would disguise themselves and enter a dungeon belonging to the Legend Guild in such an audacious manner. She feels regret and says that all of this is her fault and she should have been more aware. Taejin tells her to ease her guilt, that what happened wasn't her fault, and there's nothing for her to apologize for. He adds that he personally expected something like this, but didn't expect it to happen so soon. Mati becomes angry and shouts that these bastards weren't just targeting John and Saran, but now they're targeting Taejin too. He says that he's going to the Union headquarters now and will keep hitting them until they confess who hired them. Taejin responds, telling him there's no need to exhaust himself by going because he already knows who hired them. Seo asks if he managed to interrogate them himself, and Mati asks if those criminals confessed so easily. Taejin replies that those criminals were very weak, and extracting information from them was easier than he expected. Seo asks seriously about the identity of the person targeting him, Siran and John, all this time. Taejin looks at them confidently, and tells them that he suspects Bae Hyun-soo, the CEO of the Sayong Guild, is behind all these incidents. Mati and Seo are shocked by this statement. Mati gets agitated and says he was sure that Snake was behind something and that he is not an easy person to deal with or trust at all. Seo begins to recall the history of the Sayong Guild, remembering that just 2 years ago it was ranked 30th among guilds, and then suddenly rose to 7th place, and that it has a bad reputation and would do anything for money and power. Seo thinks about how she always had suspicions about that guild, but had no evidence or support. Now, with Taejin's statement without hidden motives, things might take a different turn. Seo tells them that since Taejin is saying this with confidence, there's no room for doubt, and the matter must be investigated. She will go, along with elite guild hunters, to confront Mr. Bae and teach him a lesson for targeting her beloved and the nation's sweetheart, Saran, once again. Mati says he'll go with her too, that he won't let anyone who tried to harm his trainee get away with it, and shouts that he's going to demolish the building on his head. Taejin politely asks if he can go with them too, saying he wants to see the face of the person who tried to target him and end his life. In the secret Sayong Guild, Mati bursts in, calling out Bae's name loudly and angrily, saying that he missed him a lot and wanted to see him since they hadn't met for a long time. He begins smashing the building with his brute physical strength, until several hunters appear, startled by what's happening, not understanding why Mati came here or what he's doing. But they're surprised to see Seo there too, who tells them not to play dumb because they know what's happening, and tells them in a harsh tone to summon Mr. Bae, the guild representative, now for their own sake, or else this towering building will collapse on their heads and no one will survive. The hunters are shocked and say that she must have lost her mind, threatening them in their own guild like this. But Seo isn't joking, and orders the skilled hunters with her to prepare for battle. Indeed, magic skills and spells are used intensely, to the point that a large part of the building is destroyed. One of the hunters rushes to call the guild leader, banging on his office door, asking if he's inside or not. not. Bae, who was busy gathering his belongings, yells, saying that he understood the situation and there's no need to bother him like this, muttering in annoyance that he shouldn't have hired such useless hunters, and angrily wonders when things started getting complicated and messed up like this, whether it was after the evaluation test incident or the red hound problem, and all of this is because of that fool called Taejun. It's all his fault. He decides the most important thing is to take the money and gold and flee, and he can deal with guild matters later, even if it collapses. It doesn't matter. Things are already bad. But he's interrupted by a voice asking him what he's doing now. Bae looks behind him to see who's talking, and finds the massive metal door corroding and opening slowly. The voice tells him that he was hiding here all this time, thinking he wouldn't be found. The color drains from Bae's face as he feels terror, as if he's seen a ghost, unable to believe what he's seeing. Because from the opening door, Taejun's face appears, looking at him menacingly, telling him that he came all this way just to say hello. Bae panics and asks Taejun how he found his location and managed to reach him. Taejun was operating the green navigation system and told Bae that he had a hidden talent for finding people. Bae asked why he had come, saying he must have come alone and discreetly because he wanted something. Bae opened the shiny bag of money and gold, telling Taejun he would compensate him well and give him whatever he wanted. Taejun was surprised by the amount, and Bae told him that if he let him go, it would all be his alone. Mary shouted at Taejun, asking him to snap out of it and not be tempted by money. Taejun returned to his senses and told Bae that his offer wasn't bad, but that this wasn't how he preferred to acquire dirty money. He approached Bae, saying there was one thing he wanted to agree on with him, and asked about the evaluation test and whether anyone else was involved in that incident. Bae remained silent and appeared worried, and Taejun told him there was no need to lie or hide the truth since he had come to him already knowing everything. Bae yelled at Taejun, asking how he dared to speak to him that way, and told him that the evaluation test incident was his plan alone. He asked Taejun what made him think someone else might be involved. Taejun replied mockingly that Bae had tried to trap him, but it was clear his plan had failed, and he wouldn't be able to get the information from him. Taejun said that things would remain this way, and he would have to escalate the matter to the guild union for them to handle. Bae stood nervously, anticipating Taejun's next move, and told Taejun in an arrogant tone how he dared speak to him so conceitedly. He had been a mere porter not long ago, and it hadn't been that long since he'd been promoted to a B-rank hunter and started amassing power. Bae told Taejun not to think he was anything significant, and not to believe that his silence toward him was out of fear of him or his abilities. He yelled, asserting that those he truly feared to face were Seo and Mati, but a porter like Taejun would never shake him, and Bae's power began gathering in his fists in the form of intense vortices. Taejun was surprised and asked if Bae's ability was black holes, and Bae replied that the time for negotiation and talking was over, and that if Taejun had accepted his offer from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Taejun replied coldly that perhaps he should have accepted the offer after all. Mary told him to stop making nonsense remarks at the wrong times. Taejun thought that if this involved dark matter, gravity, and all that complex talk, the situation was entirely different, as the dark matter skill was S rank, with no weaknesses in attack or defense, absorbing all energy from the surrounding living beings except the energy of the caster. Bae told Taejun that if he was so scared, he shouldn't have gotten involved with him in the first place, and should have stayed beside the wall where he'd been all his life. All Taejun thought was that this was a fight he should have avoided from the start, but he would never admit that. And he replied to Bae, telling him to stop joking around, that what he was saying wasn't true, and he knew it as he began to form his fireball skill. Bae laughed mockingly and told Taejun that surely he wasn't planning to face dark matter with a simple fireball that would cool off before reaching him. Taejun responded that he didn't know who else Bae had fought with fireballs before, but his eyes never missed their target, and he was confident because he was using a new system application called the Optical Reader, which allowed him to analyze all the information of the attack and skill before him. Taejun launched the fireball, saying he also wanted to test out the new application, and Bae realized that it was impossible to avoid or block this attack, and he panicked, telling Taejun that they could solve the matter through conversation. But it was too late, as the blow struck him directly and forcefully. Bae screamed in pain, feeling like he was on fire, rolling on the ground, trying to put himself out, screaming and calling for someone to bring a fire extinguisher to save him. Taejun was surprised because he had only used a small portion of his strength in that attack, and he was very astonished by how weak this person was. Taejun brings a bucket of water and pours it over Bai, asking him to stop screaming and making a fuss. He tells Bai that an attack like that was never going to kill him anyway. Taejun says that since the situation has escalated to this point, they might as well have a simple discussion. He uses the vampire's mind control ability on Bai, telling him that he won't feel anything but that it might help reveal hidden matters and what happens under the table. After a while, Taejun takes Bai out of the building. As usual, Mate speaks loudly, praising Taejun and telling him that he has once again succeeded in capturing the troublemaker. He tells him that he is 100 times better than the useless old men running the union. Taejun responds that he wouldn't have been able to do it without their help and their guilds. Mate feels embarrassed and tells Taejun that he is not wrong either. Taejun laughs awkwardly and notices that they've literally destroyed half the building, as usual for the relentless leader of Hwarang. Taejun finds it strange that Seo is nowhere to be seen, so he asks Mate about her. Mate tells him she's on her way, and she just went to collect some evidence from the guildmaster's office. While they're talking, a portal opens, and Mate says, as expected, she always arrives on time. Mate asks her if she managed to find anything, and Seo replies that she did find evidence about the evaluation test incident in Bai's office. She found that several high-ranking officials in the administration were involved, but of course they all left the country and liquidated their businesses here. Mate says he expected that and asks if she found any hunters or guilds involved. SEO tells him that the first thing is the evaluation test for B-rank hunters, in which Bai, the guild leader, and corrupt government officials were involved, including the man who tried to flee after being caught. All of this, of course, was for money and high positions. Mate feels frustrated and tells her that it's useless. Wherever they go, they always find greedy people who care about nothing but money. Taejun feels that Mate's words hit him, especially since he had no problem taking money from Bai. Mate rushes over, grabs Bai by the ear, and tells him that the main problem lies with him. He scolds him for throwing money around, thinking that money solves everything and achieves anything. Bai cries out for mercy and asks someone to help him, but Mate continues dragging him by the ear and tells him he won't hand him over to the union until he's finished with him first. After Mate and Bai leave, Seo approaches Taejun and thanks him for helping them. She asks him about what he said about capturing guild leader Bai himself when he was hiding in the secret cellar, and Taejun replies that it indeed happened. Seo tells him that every time Taejun comes and helps them at the last minute, she never expects to receive help in that way. Taejun replies that there's no need to say that, and he did it for himself too. He wanted to find the people behind all these incidents who were targeting him. Seo is surprised and asks if he suspects someone else, and Taejun tells her that he has suspected it since the evaluation test incident, and it's impossible for Bai to have planned it alone. The sealed lich, black magic, and forbidden contract, all these powerful things couldn't be the work of just one person. He adds that there are definitely hidden forces helping Bai carry out his plans. Taejun tells Seo that he doesn't just want to capture Bai, but everyone else behind these calamities. Taejun's tone shifts to seriousness and enthusiasm, and he says that if someone does something wrong, it's only natural that they receive the appropriate punishment. Seo responds in a surprised tone, saying she never imagined that Taejun had such a strong sense of justice and righteousness in his character. She then asks if he has managed to discover the villains behind these incidents who were helping Bai in his plans. Taejun smiles wickedly without responding immediately. Sometime after the arrest of guild leader Bai, a person is sitting in a dark room, engrossed in some matter or research on the internet. He seems anxious and agitated, unable to believe all the news about Taejun and the arrest of the guild leader. This person is Yong-min, the leader of the Hwarang Guild, and he appears angry because of the constant flow of news appearing before him. He feels worried that he too might get caught. He mutters nervously, saying there was only one written contract, and since he used the sealing spell, it should be impossible for him to be caught. He's startled by the sound of someone asking for permission to enter. Yong-min grants permission, and Jo Yong-ti, his brother, enters, informing Yong-min that there is someone outside who wants to meet him. He tells him that he left the person waiting in the hallway, but is unsure if he should let him in or not. Yong-min asks if this person wants to meet him personally, and if he is from Sky Guild or Hwarang. Jo Yong-ti replies that he couldn't see the person well, since they had their face covered or wore a mask. He said to tell Yong-min, A fly buzzes, and upon hearing this phrase, Yong-min jumps immediately. He orders Jo Yong-ti to bring him in at once, thinking to himself if Bai had confessed to something before being arrested, but obtaining information about their dealings through interrogation should be impossible. The person enters, removes the disguise they were wearing, revealing themselves to be Taejun. Yong-min is shocked that this is Taejun himself, the one from the evaluation test, but he wonders why he is here and how he found them. Yong-min pretends to be indifferent, laughs awkwardly, and asks Taejun why someone famous like him would come to his humble office. He thinks to himself if Taejun came to threaten or blackmail him regarding the dealings and contract between him and Bai. Taejun laughs slyly, then begins laughing maniacally. He flips and rolls on the ground. The Min brothers are bewildered by Taejun's strange behavior. Yong-min tells T to stop this nonsense that's happening. Taejun laughs loudly and tells them to try stopping him if they can. Taejun continues spinning around the room, moving like a train, to the extent that Miri is startled and asks him what kind of foolishness he is doing now, questioning if he has completely lost his mind this time. Taejun doesn't respond to her and continues approaching the Min brothers in his provocative manner. Yong-ti activates his technique, and Yong-min tells him to finish it and put an end to this madman. Yong-ti rushes toward Taejun, asking how he dares enter someone's office and act this crazy without any shame. He hits him hard, saying furiously if he has lost his mind due to the burden he's carrying. Yong-min keeps watching from afar, mouth agape. Taejun stops spinning, smiles wickedly, and says he was just really moved when he saw the true leader of the guild. With his incredible abilities, strong moves, and his keen intuition in stopping an opponent's attack, Taejun laughs and says that this is enough for an entry test. He then adjusts his stance and says he wants to formally get to know them now, introducing himself as Taejun, a Class B hunter, unaffiliated with any guild and working as a freelance hunter. Yong-min asks what he's talking about and what an entry test has to do with anything. Taejun responds that it has everything to do with it, as he needs to know the skill level of the guild he plans to join in the future, and that this was just a test to see if they could handle him and his abilities or not. Yong-min is stunned and starts sweating, not understanding whether Taejun is truly insane or pretending, or if he is unaware of what he's doing. Yong-ti approaches Taejun, telling him in a menacing tone that all this talk about entry tests and skills is the kind of nonsense that only an idiot or a madman would say. He gets even angrier and tells him that when he speaks, he should understand what he's saying and speak only within his level, asking if he knows where he is and what kind of place this is. He tells him that this is not a place for amateurs like him who don't even know how to use spirit summoning to come here. Taejun responds coldly and defiantly to young T, saying that they speak of spirit summoning as if it were some great benefit, pointing out that if they continue relying solely on that skill, their guild will collapse and fail miserably. He adds that the current guild, without exaggeration, owes its foundation to the first leader, Junho, who led it with his skill in blood magic from the very beginning, a skill that no one has managed to use since. Since then, the concept of black magic and spirit summoning has evolved significantly, allowing them to rank among the top 5 guilds in Korea, becoming the representative of all black magic guilds there. But now, they are on the verge of bankruptcy, especially after the retirement of the first leader. He explains that the guild is in no position to be choosy, quoting an old saying that wealth and prosperity are but a disguised blessing. He adds that this is the right time to turn the crisis into an opportunity and use the situation to their advantage, assuring that if they accept his joining, the guild will return to its former glory, perhaps even better. Young Min tries to comprehend Taejun's words, responding but feeling a bit confused. However, Taejun interrupts him, telling him there's something else, pulling out a paper and asking Young Min to take a look. He says that perhaps after reading it, he might change his perspective and opinion. Young Min reads the paper, feeling shocked at its content, as if the world around him has frozen. Young T notices this and asks his brother what's happening, but Young Min laughs nervously, telling him that everything is under control. role. He looks at Taejun cautiously, realizing that Taejun had known everything from the start. From using artifacts to alter the evaluation test to the dubious dealings he had with guild leader Bai, Taejun confidently and cunningly asks if he has thought it over and changed his mind yet, extending a contract and asking him to sign it if he had no objections. Taejun successfully compels young Min to sign the contract, which infuriates young Tai, making him feel disheartened. He tells young Min how he could allow someone who doesn't even know how to summon spirits to join the guild so easily, saying it was madness. Young Min thinks it over, telling young T that he understands his anger, but he needs to calm down, and he will explain everything. He adds that despite Taejun's bizarre and crazy demeanor, his skills are strong and impressive, and he will be a powerful ally for the guild, helping them in the future. Young T tells him that Taejun cannot possibly help them to that extent, and young Min replies that he knows there's something not quite right, urging him not to be deceived, for he's no fool. Young Min then confirms before leaving that Taejun must learn spirit summoning before he sees him again in the guild. Otherwise, he would teach him the hard way through a welcoming ritual. In the calm atmosphere of the town after Taejun joined the Hwarong Guild, Taejun sits on his house balcony, sipping a cup of coffee, saying that he hasn't felt this relaxed in a long time, away from the hustle and bustle of a hunter's life. He feels the warmth of the sun's rays and the pleasant aroma of coffee, and everything seems perfect for relaxing. Mary tells him that it's a good thing, and that he's finally acting naturally. Though not long ago, there were people out to get him. She adds that it wouldn't hurt for him to remain cautious during this period too. Taejun replies that he's thought of everything, and of course, he wouldn't just sit idly by without taking any precautions. Mary asks him what measures he's taken, and he shows her a ring, asking her to look at it. He tells her that he obtained this item when they apprehended the Red Hound agents, and that there was a reason for their success in all the assassinations without being detected or caught all that time. He explains that the reason is that once the ring is worn, his appearance completely changes to that of a different person, making it impossible for anyone to recognize him, not even the hired assassins, unless they have very high skills in surveillance and detection. Mary tells Taejun that this is good, and that he'll be able to move freely for some time and stay out of trouble as much as he wants. Taejun laughs confidently, telling her that nothing will disturb his peace now, and that all they have to do is enjoy their time and live a luxurious life. Mary asks, curiously, why he suddenly decided to join a guild when he had received offers from better and more famous guilds. Taejun replies that he didn't mind joining any guild, but the Hwarong Guild was less complicated than the others. Otherwise, he'd have to participate in dungeon missions every now and then, or be invited to attend political speeches and official events, since being a hunter in a prestigious guild like Sky, Hwarang, or Magic would constantly draw attention to him and put him in unnecessary trouble. On the other hand, with Hwarong Guild, he doesn't have to worry at all about his superiors, plus he has complete freedom to collect magical stones in any quantity he wishes. And that's apart from the harsh conditions he listed in the joining contract, which are all in Taejun's favor. Mary tells him she's genuinely curious about the kind of boldness he possesses. She asks him what his current plans are, and he tells her that he hasn't spent time with himself for a long time and is planning to go shopping. Mary is surprised and tells him she didn't expect him to have that inclination. Taejun asks, "What's strange about that?" Mary replies that she always saw him as greedy and obsessed with collecting money, to the point where she didn't think he'd want to spend it buying things. Taejun laughs and says he'll still collect money, but of course there are times when he wants to spend it. Taejun gets excited and tells her, "Come on, let's spend some money." Taejun arrives at a huge, towering building, saying he never imagined he'd have the opportunity to shop in a place like this. He laughs, saying that was back in his poor days, but now he's like the elite, and he'll spend as he pleases, even buying a similar building or building one himself if he wants. Mary tells him that the building is enormous and vast, and she doubts Taejun could even build 2 floors. She tells Taejun that this place seems unusual and not a traditional shopping center. Taejun replies, saying she doesn't know much about this world, and that he'll explain everything to her. He tells her that this is the largest hunter-only shopping mall, containing everything a hunter could dream of, from the richest and strongest to the lesser ones, and includes all kinds of items and equipment, whether rare or expensive, with new items added every week, filled with everything anyone could think of. Taejun dramatically says that what she sees before her is the largest hunter mall in all of Korea. Taejun opens the door excitedly to see what lies inside, and as he puts his hand on the handle, he hears a voice behind him asking if he's Taejun. A girl steps out of a luxury car and says she can't believe this is really Taejun, and that she barely recognized him because of the disguise item he's wearing. She says she heard about him only through the news or through her brother. Taejun feels embarrassed, telling her it's an honor, and asks who she is. She apologizes and says she should have introduced herself first, then begins by introducing herself as Yerin Cha, head of the Legend Guild. Taejun is surprised, telling her it's an honor to meet her, and he assumes that if she's the head of the Legend Guild, she must be Cha's younger sister. He asks her why the guild leader would come here at this time. Yerin replies that it would be impossible for him not to have any idea. She tells him that this entire shopping mall belongs to her and that she manages it, and that every week when new goods arrive, she has to be there to receive them personally. Taejun is surprised that the largest shopping mall in Korea is managed by the Legend Guild, feeling a bit overwhelmed by this news. Taejun laughs awkwardly and tells her he didn't know that at all and apologizes for not knowing something like that. Yerin tells him there's no need to apologize, that it's normal since people don't know much about her as she doesn't appear much in the news or social media. Then Yerin changes her tone and quietly asks Taejun if he has a moment of his time. She tells him that she heard about his performance in the recent mission concerning the cursed land from Sona and her brother Cha, and that without him, they wouldn't have been able to clear the dungeon at all, in addition to the fact that the lives of the 3 guild members would have been in danger without his help. She tells him that she wants to give him something as a reward for his noble action, if he doesn't mind. Taejun responds by saying that he appreciates her kind words, but he doesn't want anything at all, and will not accept anything, as their gratitude is more than enough for him. Yerin laughs gently, and says that if this is what he wants, then she cannot object. She then puts her hand in her pocket and asks Taejun if he's sure about this decision, especially since, in their storage, she could give him an item that he might like or that might catch his attention. Then she pulls out a golden card from her pocket and tells him that this item could be an exclusive and rare one as well. Taejun's heart races with joy, and he can't believe that Yerin is ready to give him such a gift, a rare item of his choice along with a VIP card, all for free. Yerin starts to leave, saying that Taejun missed a great opportunity by refusing this offer, but he stops her and changes his mind, telling her that he wouldn't mind taking a look at the item first. They enter the building, and in the elevator, Yerin tells Taejun that he seems more ordinary than she had imagined, and that she expected him to have a distinct aura or presence. Taejun asks if she's implying something by her words, to which she replies that she didn't expect to feel such an overwhelming presence due to all the stories and rumors she's heard about his abilities. Taejun feels embarrassed and tells her he didn't mean to shatter her expectations like that, and Yerin responds that she didn't intend to say anything bad, but quite the opposite, as it only piqued her curiosity and admiration more, as he seems more like an ordinary person rather than an extraordinary hunter. She laughs and says, "I just hope Sona doesn't hate me for what I said." They finally arrive after the door opens, and Yerin tells him that this floor is reserved exclusively for their VIP clients, and no one else can enter it. But today is a special day, and Taejun will be able to enter freely. She asks him to feel comfortable and take a tour of the place. Taejun is astonished and impressed by the size and elegance of the place, and the fact that it contains extremely rare and exclusive items, some of which cost millions of won. He looks at Yerin differently, feeling curious to know who this girl really is to have such influence. Yerin notices his gaze and asks if there is any item that caught his attention, and he tells her that there are many things, making it difficult for him to choose among them. But he points to some items in the distance and tells her that something there captured his heart and caught his eye ever since they entered. Yerin shows her admiration for his taste and says it's unique and distinctive as well, as the items and tools there were all used by guild leaders in the past, such as from the Legend Guild, the Sky Guild, Hwarang, and others, and these tools were used by the wise men who ruled Korea in the past. Now, they are considered ancient relics that cannot be used, but they keep them here for for historical purposes. Taejun feels annoyed and says to her, "All right," noticing that Yeren could tell he was disappointed. She apologizes to him for the fact that those tools are for display only and not for sale, but he can look at other things, as there are many things that he might find more useful. Their conversation is interrupted by one of Yeren's assistants, who tells her that the current vice president of the Affairs Guild has arrived and is waiting for her. Yeren looks at her watch and says that she got too engrossed and almost forgot about the appointment. She bids farewell to Taejun and tells him that she has an important meeting now, but she'll be waiting for him in her office after the meeting to continue their conversation. Taejun replies, saying that he will definitely come to her as soon as she finishes. Mary tells Taejun to stop sucking up, to which Taejun responds that he needs to have excellent communication skills. Mary says that those who have an ailment will never be cured, then looks at the piece and asks why he is interested in that particular item and not anything else, especially since it looks old and useless from a distance. Taejun replies that what she's saying isn't wrong, but he can see something else in this item. He tells her that even if he didn't want to care about it, something was compelling him to desire it, and he gets a notification from the system that there's a new mission, to increase his power by possessing the relic items. Taejun thinks that his skill, explosive growth, has never given him a pointless or unnecessary mission, and that he always gets tasks suited to his level and abilities, which means that there must be a way to solve this mission somehow. He starts whining about why he can't get that item, wondering why it's so out of reach. He says he can do anything. If Yeren asked him to bark like a dog, he'd do it just like a dog. He doesn't know what he could do to earn guild leader Yeren's favor and make her agree to give him the item. Suddenly, Taejun hears a commotion. He starts to shine and realizes that the source of the noise is coming from the office room. It seems there's a disagreement over a deal, and the initial payment was supposed to be larger. Taejun guesses that Yeren is in trouble now, and an idea flashes in his mind, meaning only one thing. This is his chance to gain favor with guild leader Yeren, to help her in her predicament or solve it if he can. Taejun rushes towards the office, determined to get guild leader Yeren on his side, so he can ask for whatever he wants from her, and she'll generously give it. Yeren shouts, saying that, like every time, she's disappointed, and asks the vice president how long he'll keep behaving like this. Vice President Young-suk Kang laughs and tells her that she's very bold to speak that way, stating that they've priced all the products according to their standards, and that working for a fair price is the foundation of business. Yeren gets agitated and says that he's truly insufferable, but they're interrupted by Taejun entering and asking what's going on, saying he heard a loud noise, so he came. Young-suk tells Taejun that he doesn't know who he is exactly, but he'd be very grateful if Taejun could leave now, and quickly, because they're discussing important and sensitive matters. He asks Taejun to come later once they're done, but Taejun, as always, acts without hesitation and says nonchalantly, as if surprised, that it looks like they're in the middle of some serious work. He says he likes work too, and he always thinks that flying in business class or traveling on a private jet is amazing. Taejun sits down on a chair, crosses his legs, and asks Young-suk where they left off in their conversation about this business. Vice President Young-suk gets annoyed and asks Yeren what connection this person has to her, or what his status in the guild is to behave in such a rude manner. Taejun focuses on the tools placed on the desk in front of him, guessing their value just by looking at them. He understands that this guild specializes in appraising items, and since specialized appraisal guilds are very rare in the country, there's only one guild monopolizing the market in Korea. Therefore, they're not only able to exploit their power, but also manipulate contracts as they please, leaving the Legend Guild with no choice but to fall under their financial exploitation and blackmail. Taejun laughs quietly and tells Young-suk that he's sorry for being late in greeting and introducing himself, and tells him his name is Taejun and that he works as a legal advisor for guild leader Yeren, then asks him with a bright smile what all this fuss is about. Yeren was surprised and asked Taejun why he was acting and speaking so suddenly, but Taejun's laughter drowned out her words. Young-suk told Taejun that if he was indeed Yeren's personal lawyer, he could participate in the meeting freely. Young-suk explained that President Yeren wanted all the equipment appraised in just one day, while usually a full inspection would take a week. This required an increase in the workforce and therefore much higher costs. He emphasized that the initial payment Yeren provided was insufficient, and that for equipment of this scale, they should receive at least twice the base payment. Taejun said that he understood what was said, but there was something strange that caught his attention. He explained that the Current Affairs Guild was supposed to specialize in appraising emotional interactions as well. Young-suk confirmed this. Taejun continued by saying that this meant that the guild was highly proficient, and therefore it was unreasonable for such trivial matters to take an entire week. He considered that this undermined the value of experts like them. Taejun then began mocking them, saying that if he were in Yeren's place, he would have replaced them with another appraisal guild long ago. Young-suk, annoyed by these words, asked Taejun angrily why he was talking this way. He said that if Taejun wanted to bring in another guild, he should do as he pleased, but not come complaining when all the valuable items ended up wasted. He explained that if the appraisal wasn't done correctly, or if any mistake was made, the value of the item would be lost entirely. Nevertheless, he said that if Taejun wanted to take the risk, that was his choice, but he believed it was best for them to cooperate with his guild rather than resort to unknown guilds. He then looked at Taejun and told him he knew of no other guild that could perform appraisals as skillfully as they could. Yeren asked Taejun to calm down, saying that she appreciated his help but could not allow the situation to get more complicated. Taejun stood up and said that he had been a little inappropriate without reason and had caused problems between Young-suk and President Yeren, and he apologized to them before leaving. After Taejun left, Young-suk spoke in a sly tone, saying that he saw no reason for disputes because no other guild would provide as beneficial a partnership as the Current Affairs Guild. He asked Yeren to stop being stubborn and sign the financial transfer contract, but they were interrupted by the sound of someone else entering the office again, and it was Taejun who returned, making a commotion, introducing himself once more while wearing inspection glasses. He said his name was Taejun, and he was the one responsible for appraising and evaluating items.